All right, everybody. Good evening. It is February 24th, 2025. You'll note a bit of a different look for the show this evening. That's because I'm joined by some of the superstars of this whole project, some of the male anglerfish tagging along on my female anglerfish flying through the ocean. Uh, I'm joined by Tony Ferrari of the Hockey News and Sam McGilligan of X.com, I guess. Uh, of
Please don't
X.com
associate me with
fame.
that trash, please.
No,
Come on.
Puck Preps legend Sam McGillicuddy is here, and the face of our producer is on the screen. After long, and numerous requests, we're finally doing it. AJ, welcome. How's your face? What's going on? Yeah, AJ's got the Leafs gear.
We winning, baby. We winning. Leafs for cup as always.
Right. When everybody's dead from the Four Nations face-off and they beat the Chicago Blackhawks, right? Yeah, go Leafs, go, right? Whatever. But anyway, a win is a win. You know, they don't ask how, they'd ask how many. But anyway, fellas, how are you? Who cares about AJ? Tony, we'll go with you. What's up? What's going on?
I'm good. I'm watching Sam readjust his mic or his camera, and that's entertaining. So I'm having a good time
as
already.
dramatic as it was, but like I looked at it and I was like, oh, that's not even. And then I fixed it and it got worse.
Right. Well,
yeah. Anyways,
you know. Yeah. Anyways, Sam, what's up? It's been a little while. You were supposed to be on the show and you canceled on us because you were sick.
Oh,
so,
dude, don't get me started on that one. That was a terrible day. I would have come on here and you would have asked me a question and I would have just been like, stuff.
Would you have like vomited on camera? Because that would have been a lot of fun.
No, not that bad, but you would have.
Well, all right.
You know, lots of like credibility because me.
Then it's a good thing that you didn't show up then, I guess. It's a good thing.
I did you a solid. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's okay. We made it work. We got through it. We had a good week last week. Again, thanks to Scott Wheeler for popping on the show. Any housekeeping? I can't remember. We got a video room coming tomorrow. We have a game tape coming later this week, I believe. Jackson Smith. Tony, I don't know if you want to say anything about that before it drops, but that's coming soon.
Yeah, Jackson Smith was fun. He's a smarter player than I think people give him credit for. Very much a hockey bro. And if you like guys who are extremely toolsy and can do some fun things, despite some questionable decisions at times in the defensive end, I think Jackson Smith's right up your alley. He's a guy that I think a lot of people have in the top 10 now. I don't think we're alone in that now. So he's kind of solidified himself as the number 2 defenseman in the class, but we'll see. We'll see how things go the rest of the season.
That makes sense. So I'm looking forward to that. I caught most of that interview, and yeah, I very much agree. It's a good time. So and our video room episode will be on Luca Cagnoni. Everybody's been asking about him for weeks and weeks and weeks. So we took a look at Mr. Cagnoni with the San Jose Barracuda, and it was a good one. But that'll be coming tomorrow, I think. So you can stay tuned for that. But anyway, let's get the show going here. And the one thing I think on everybody's mind was arguably one of the greatest hockey games that I think I've seen in a very long time, in the truest sense of the word great. National pride at stake, national sovereignty at stake, continental sports dominance at stake. Canada defeats the United States in overtime. Connor McDavid, overtime hero. The Discord server unanimously believed that Connor McDavid was going to be the OT hero for Canada. We didn't even put an American forward as an option.
What did I say, Will? What did I say? On stream.
AJ, you talk all the time.
Yes, I do.
I don't know what you said.
Yes, I do. Of course I talk all the time.
What was it? What did you say? What did
on
you say?
Stream. On what was it? Thursday? Before the game.
Yes. Yeah, it would have been.
McDaddy is our savior. He will win it for us. He will will it.
Yeah. And you know what? He came through when it mattered. I also believe that everybody deserves to have their own Steve Harvey moment with Jordan Binnington. I have to apologize because that game could have gone the other way. I don't know, 3 or 4 times. That maybe, I don't know.
In overtime, Matthews almost finished it twice or 3 times, I think. So
yes,
I mean, let's be honest. I don't think any of us are fans of Jordan Binnington, the person, or even Jordan Binnington, the St. Louis Blue. But you know what? When he puts that Canadian jersey on, I love that little psychopath.
You know what? I completely agree. Oh, don't zoom in. I don't have much more to say.
That's all he's got. That's all he's got.
Too bad,
But,
Sam. I'm staying on you.
All right,
Yeah.
fine. I would say that it's quite ironic that Austin Matthews was just, what, like you said, 2 chances away from being the hero of the game. And instead, now everyone's memeing on him because he went a little too far away from the slot at a very bad time.
Yes. I mean, but if you, I get to say this. If you watched the game, Matthews was a monster.
He was
that
the
game.
best
Like,
player in that
he
game.
was wild. And I will also say, if you haven't seen it, go check out Frankie Corrado on Twitter, because he had a really good breakdown of what happened on that goal. And the defenseman for the Americans also got crossed up there. So if you watch the video back, I believe it's Adam Fox who overcommits to the front of the to the middle of the ice and leaves Mitch Marner in the corner wide open.
Matthews did
And
nothing wrong.
Yeah, and Matthews sees that happening and bites. So like him and Fox both tried to go for Marner, but it was Fox's man, and that opened the gap for McDavid. So, you know, yeah, you can make the argument Matthews should have stuck with McDavid. Fair enough, you know, but in the context of that whole game and on what happened on that play, I mean, Austin Matthews was just bananas in that game for the US. I mean, that US team as a whole was just so good. Like, I don't even, like, Brady Tkachuk was a nightmare. Jack Hughes was great. You know, Jack Eichel, great. I don't know. They didn't have much holes, but I don't know. I've talked enough. What about you guys? You watched the game. What are you thinking? How proud are you? How happy are you about this country, you know,
Thomas
beating the
Harley
11th province?
deserves a lot of props for that game.
Yes.
Thomas Harley stepped up huge. But the other thing that I noticed, and I'm about to drop the coldest take ever taken, but you really see just how much Canada changes when Cale Makar is in the line. Like, holy, that was a big difference maker relative to the first game.
Yeah.
Every time he had the puck, he was just magic while still being a stifling presence all throughout the ice whenever the US was advancing play. He's just a demon.
Yeah, I mean, he is Cale Makar. Like, he's
right, like, exactly, like a coldest take of all time. But like, I was just, it's because he wasn't there for the first game that when I was watching him in the second one, every single time I saw someone do sick on something on the back end, I was like, well, that's Makar. Obviously, part of it is just you see his style with the puck is already so unique. As soon as you see him, you know it's Cale Makar. But like, it just, on a best on best stage against that team of all teams, to really see him style out the way that he did, I was just like, whoo!
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think it is also entirely fair that both teams also were just exceptionally good.
Yeah, they're just
and
stacked.
Like, that game could have gone either way. Both games could have gone either way. And I mean, more than anything, I think now that that's in the sunset era now, I think the Milan Olympics are now at the forefront. I imagine these teams will look very similar.
Yeah.
Is there anyone you guys might think might be there next time? I'm curious.
Bedard.
Like, yeah, Connor Bedard maybe gets there, but I don't know who you take off the team up front for Canada. Like, they were pretty good. I don't know.
It'll be interesting because they have a couple of guys that are on the older end now. I think Brad Marchand's the guy everyone keeps going to, but he's also the guy that got an A when the other guys were out of the lineup. So I think they still want to keep him around because of the presence that he has, the personality, the leadership that he brings. It'll be interesting to see because I really don't know who you take off, because anybody that you could kind of criticize going into this tournament had big moments. Sam Bennett was great at times in this tournament. There were moments throughout this tournament that guys on the back end were really good. So I think you look at this team and you go, I think Thomas Harley needs to get there full time for the next tournament. And then, yeah, you look at the Connor Bedards. I saw people suggesting Macklin Celebrini, and I think maybe that's a little bit hasty, but it'll be interesting. We need to see, obviously, the first half of the last half of the season, the playoffs, and into the early portion of next season. I assume they're not going to be in a rush to name rosters. at least not as early as they did for this tournament. That was the weirdest thing to me, is that they're naming rosters in December, like late November, early December, and then you have Logan Thompson, who's absolutely balling out for the Caps, and Jordan Binnington was great, and I give him the credit. I told him, like I said, I love that little psychopath when he's wearing the Canadian jersey. But yeah, like you left some good goalies home for guys that maybe shouldn't have been there. So it'll be interesting how they handle that goaltending situation. But yeah, it's going to be fun. And the other thing too is, we talked about Cale Makar. Sam mentioned how good he was. Quinn Hughes wasn't there. Charlie McAvoy wasn't there for the last game. That American team can get even better. Like that's the other thing too. So those two teams are going to be the favorites going in. But I mean, we didn't talk about Sweden, but they were the only team in the tournament to get a point in every single game. So they're right there. They're kind of the third wheel, obviously, but yeah, I think that Milan tournament's going to be fun.
No Clayton Keller either on the American team.
Yeah.
That would have been insane.
Should have been there over Kreider, man. Should have been there.
Well, you know.
Hey, Kreider had one nice goal, kind of.
Right.
I don't care.
He's
not good.
Price.
Yeah, true. Before we move on to what everyone's probably here to watch, I am curious about you guys. Going into the tournament, on a scale out of 10, how excited were you? And then coming out the other end, how much does it differ, if at all? I'm very curious about this, because the difference for me is pretty large, not gonna lie.
I'd say it was like a 6 out of 10 going into the tournament. Mostly, like before all the, I'll be honest, before all the Canada US stuff really blew up, it was like a 3 out of 10. And then that kind of made me be like, all right, there'll be some, stakes here. It'll be pretty intense, I imagine. But I don't know. We'll see. It's still like an all-star style format. And then suddenly, it just exploded. And as soon as like the actual game started, I was like, this is a 10 out of 10. I was just so entrenched into all the games, but the Canada US ones, like there was just an emotional boundary there. Imagine if that was the Olympics, with the same level of just like, I guess I don't want to say hostility, but just tension between the two nations.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that is. Anyways,
for me, it was, I was going to be completely honest, 6 out of 10 is really high for what I was expecting coming in. I was more at like a 4, because I'm like, I don't know if these guys are going to try. I don't know how much they're going to care about this tournament that's a one-off. They know there's a World Cup coming in a few years. They know that this isn't truly best on best, because you don't have all these other countries. Some of the best players in the world aren't there. Are they going to care? Are they going to try? And like Sam said, it really kind of took one game to get things going. That Canada-Sweden game to open the tournament was absolutely fantastic. And then the Canada-US game, where just dudes are literally injuring themselves and taking themselves out of their league play team for months at a time, possibly. Like the intensity was ramped up. And my big question going forward is, the next tournament is going to be the Olympics, and we all love the Olympics. It's obviously the highest stakes. Everyone goes, that's the peak of international hockey. But we're not going to get what we got in this tournament, because you can't fight.
Yes, you're right.
It's IHF rules, so you're not going to have the aggressiveness. Brady Tkachuk's going to get 45 penalty minutes in the first game that he plays, and he's going to be so confused, because I don't think he has the capacity to learn not get 45 in the next game. With that said, I loved what Brady Tkachuk brought. I loved what Matthew Tkachuk brought. Like those guys were so fun to watch at this tournament. But you saw that they paid the price. Brady Tkachuk is going to go into the Olympics and disqualify himself from every game. Matthew Tkachuk hurt himself now, and he may hurt himself in the next tournament too, because that's the style that they play. Can they play that at an IHF event? That's my biggest question. Is like, are people going to go, we don't want the Olympics anymore? Because we had everyone talking about how good this was compared to NBA All-Star Weekend. And let's be honest, NBA All-Star Weekend isn't
oh, it was bad.
But
it was bad.
It's still the NBA. The NHL went up against the NBA with each of their gimmicks, and the NHL won outright.
Dominated.
ESPN was absolutely all over this. They had guys like PK, who we can get into him later if you want, but they had him on First Take. They had him on all First Up. They had him on all these different interview shows, the talk shows, the morning shows that the ESPN does, and he's going on about hockey. And he had other people were going on about hockey. They had Stephen A. Smith and some of the bigger personalities on that network talking about hockey over what LeBron James was doing. Kevin Durant said you should go watch hockey at one point during NBA All-Star weekend. You're having this kind of thing where everyone now has this expectation. I heard someone talking in Vancouver about how they went to a game in Utah right after the return from the Four Nations, and just the excitement level was just a little bit higher. And maybe that's kind of a rollover of this event. Maybe we are building that fan base. But when we go to the Olympics, we're not going to get that same kind of intensity, at least in terms of the fights, the things that initially drew people in. But I think that Canada USA game was perfect because you got the fights in the first 9 seconds, and then you got some of the best skill players in the entire world showcasing what the actual game of hockey is. So, yes, the fights got the attention, but that McDavid goal at the end of the tournament is also getting just as much, if not more.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it was. I mean, we've been waiting for this for so long. You know, it was so nice to see. And I can't wait for the Olympics when our glorious nation Canada takes on AJ's glorious nation of Italy in group play. That's going to be an entertaining one.
AJ,
I
are you
only-
suiting up?
No, I'm not
No?
suiting up. I mean, I
just
can
don't know who
sing
else is
the
gonna-
anthem, but like that's it.
Yeah, he's going to be the anthem singer in
Now,
Milan.
I have
Yeah.
a question about that. Was there not discussion that they were going to allow NHLers of Italian descent to possibly suit up for Italy for this tournament, just to
I
make
would
them
imagine.
like that would make sense, just
Michael
to
and
make
Luke
them
Misa at the Olympics.
yeah, like there's like,
I think.
don't
Well,
know.
I think legally you can change your IAHF country eligibility one time, I
Yeah.
believe. So if the Italian government or these guys had like Italian heritage, if they went to the government and were like, yeah, I want to play for the Italian national team, they can do that. But I don't think that they could just be like, I'm going to play for Italy for the Olympics and that's it. And then I'm going to go back to playing for Canada. So I would imagine it would be like China did this, right? Like there were a bunch of Chinese heritage North Americans who had been playing for Kunlun Red Star, who played for the Chinese team. And I believe those guys are now ineligible to play for Canada. But in any case, it'll be fun. It's going to be a good time, and definitely set the stage for a new era of international hockey. And boy, it's going to be a good
It's
one.
time. We've been waiting.
Yeah, it's about time. All right, let's get into the draft here, guys. You are all hard at work, I imagine, just
Except
like
for
I
me.
am. Well, yeah, AJ doesn't do anything.
I just play EU4 all day.
Yeah, you just play EU4 all day and make one YouTube short. That's it.
Yep.
There's your job.
That's right.
Yeah, but anyway, I wanted to. I guess I'll just start things off and see if anyone finds anything interesting with the guys who I have taken a look at in the last week. And this is not including players that with Sam and I had a little powwow, a little date Friday night, watched a few guys then, had some good times. But this is not inclusive of that evening. So Cam Reed, I did a game of, I did Ben Keevan, Albin Laaksonen in Sweden, Sean Barnhill, Danila Skvortsov, Vadim Murtka, just all the big boys. Sam Spear, Bruno Idzon, Lev Katzen, Riker Lee, Jimmy Lombardi, Flint Firebirds legend, Melvin Novotny, Adam Banak, Nikita Poltavchuk, William Horkoff, Brady Martin, Lyndon Lakovich, James Haggins, Porter Martone, and Michael Misa, the big boys today. That's where I was today. Tony, I know you're sort of working on a list. You're kind of working on a mid-season thing. Where do we float here? We don't have much of we have a bit of a skeleton structure today. I'm not gonna lie. So I'll throw it over to Tony and see what catches the attention of Mr. Ferrari.
Let's talk about. There's two guys I want to bring up, and the first one is James Haggins. This guy came into the year as the number one. Everyone's kind of loved him. I don't think he's really done anything to take himself out of that. But I think two players specifically, Misa and Schaefer, at least for me, have kind of outplayed him to the point where it's not that Haggins has been bad in any way, but those two have been so much more exceptional than anyone expected coming in that I think people are starting to forget about Haggins. So I think we need to at least bring him up because the playmaking is still there. The skill is still there. He plays with speed. He's been centering that BC top line. Why? I'm curious to get your guys' take. Why is he kind of becoming the forgotten guy in that top, let's say, 5?
I feel like I can pop out an answer for this one. I've talked about it with Will on the stream before. So I think a big part of the reason why Hagens came into the year kind of viewed as the undisputed number one is because at the beginning of the year, or sorry, towards the end of last year, Michael Misa was playing through injury. If you go back like 2-3 years and people who were following these kids when they're like 15, 16, like Misa and Hagens were seen as equal if Misa was not ever so slightly ahead when he got his exceptional status. Misa had the tremendous rookie season in the OHL. And if you look at back then, and like the 2 years away 2025 prelim list, some have Misa first, some have Hagens first. It was really kind of personal preference. The two have always been neck and neck. The only reason that ever got separated is because one got hurt at the time when other people are like, who's first next year? And Hagens was popping off on the NTDP while Misa was falling down the Saginaw lineup that was very successful as en route to their victories last year. So I think part of it is just the fact that Misa has rebounded and a lot more eyes are on him than ever before. And people are like, whoa, he's incredible. When the reality is that the two have always been incredible. They've always been compared. They've always been Canada's number one for the draft and USA's number one for the draft. When it comes to Hagens, when you're already at that number one level and now there are people entering the conversation, suddenly you're boring. Not as a player, but like talking about you at first is boring. It seems like everybody was just very comfortable all at once being like, wait, Schaefer? Okay, cool. Because like unlike Misa, Schaefer was a very high end prospect. He went first overall in the OHL as well. Schaefer we knew was going to be a very high end player in this draft, but I don't know if we knew it was going to be this good. I mean, Puck Prep's scout Jordan Millette had him first overall in the OHL easily and said spoke super highly of him. But even I don't think he was sitting there being like, yeah, that's a first overall in the NHL type player either. Like
No
he's
Jordan
really
love. That's a rule of this show. We just don't give Jordan any love. Okay.
yeah, but
Not
then when
until
we
he
need
comes
to
on the show.
Yes.
yeah, but then when we
At least
quote
until
him, we need to give him some
No.
credibility.
No.
Like he's just
No, we don't.
no, okay, true. Screw Jordan. Jordan sucks.
There you go.
And
Now
his
we're
take
talking.
on Schaefer
Yeah.
was wrong because obviously, if he had any brains and a set of eyeballs, he would have known that Schaefer was.
Now
gonna
you
be defending first
understand.
overall. But because Jordan's a dummy, and we weren't able to get this information from him. It's now a shock to the world, and everybody loves the idea of boosting him up. I'm not saying like Schaefer's not worthy of the love at number one, but it's just the fact that like. It's very, how like first overall is a status that hardly gets changed. Celebrini had it. Very few. I think Will and I and Tony were like three of the highest, being like, is Demidov gonna do it? And it didn't happen. Bedard, that was locked in. Shane Wright lasted the whole year. Slavkovsky bumped him at the end, and people are still kind of confused about that. Owen Power had it all year. Probably shouldn't have, but had the status all year. Lafreniere had it all year. Hughes was challenged by Kako, but nothing came of it. Darlene was challenged by Svechnikov. You have to go back years and years and years and years before you find an actual, fair, legitimate discussion. And I think people are just excited about it. That's the biggest reason why Hagen slips away, because he was the fancy guy and he has legitimate reason to have discussion with there's a legitimate reason to have discussion with other players.
So having seen these guys today, and sort of A-B'd all of them, or I guess A-B-C'd all of them. I mean, I think a number of things are happening. So first of all, I think the fact that Matthew Schaefer is a year younger than James Hagens really factors in. Like Schaefer played a ton last year. I think he came a long way in his game, just over the summer and into the new year. I mean, obviously him being injured, it makes it really hard to get a really good gauge on him. But Michael Misa, is a guy who, again, yeah, like you said, Sam, he was injured last year and just didn't quite look like himself. And this year, I think a couple of things are happening. Number one, I think he really, really put a lot of work into his skating and his back checking and just all these things that now come together around how smart he is and just maximize kind of what he is. And with Hagens, after watching him this season, I think the thing that's kind of grown in his game the most, at least in my sample, to my eyeballs, is he's a lot more physical now than he was at the beginning of the year. Like, I think at the beginning of the year, he seemed a little more passive. You know, he's a bit of a smaller guy. He's not, I wouldn't consider him like undersized or anything, but he was sort of getting pushed around. He was kind of not this sort of speedy guy that he was sort of advertised as. And he's been kind of pedestrian production wise for Boston College. Does that mean he's been bad? Not at all. I don't think so at all. But I do think that he's a guy who is still kind of finding his way at the college level and trying to find out, you know, how much he can push his boundaries. And the game I did today, it wasn't as good as the one I saw a month ago that I got data on. But again, like, he's still a remarkably consistent player with regards to his playmaking, and his passing and transition is great. And he, you know, moves the puck really, really well. And he's again, once the puck's in the offensive zone, he can be a real magician with it. And it's just a matter for me of like, he's got a great shot release, but he doesn't really have the skill or the speed to get into the middle of the ice enough for like consistent generation on his own. He's a guy who I think shows good, but not like great evasive sort of escape speed. And I think that at his age, being an '06 born kid, and I think a similar kind of thing is happening to Martone. You're seeing guys like Misa and Schaefer, who have had a little bit less experience, sort of work their way up a little bit more. And now you're getting a lot more competition at the top. And I mean, I think in any given year, there's probably more competition at the top than is mostly let on. Like, Sam, you were talking about, you know, when we look back at 2020 and 2021 and 2022,
Yeah.
almost every recent draft except Connor Bedard and maybe Macklin Celebrini, you could make the argument that there is a pretty broad discussion about who the best player is in that draft class. And oftentimes it's not the guy who goes at one. But I think this year, I mean, especially like the game of Michael Misa that I saw today, the guy is a machine. Like, I know that Tony, you'll probably still have him at one. Sam, I believe the last time we spoke,
I've
you
had him
at
at one for months now.
I mean, it is wild how good Michael Misa has been pretty much across the board. Hagens has been quite good. Someone commented about his shot assist numbers, and they are good. Like, they are very good. That's where the playmaking comes in. Like, he's a very good playmaker. It's just a matter of like, you're weighing that against an elite all-around offensive guy who plays a variety of different effective styles in Misa, and a really, really talented offensive defenseman who can carry the puck, make plays in the offensive zone, you know, quarterback the rush going offensively, uses his feet really well to defend the rush and close gaps and monitor the opposing offense. Like, there's so much that Schaefer does really well. So all three of these guys, I think, bring different things. But whenever I watch these guys back to back to back to back, I really try to do that anytime I check in on these guys. It's not, they say this is a cliche, but it's not really that Hagens has been like bad, but Misa has been way better than I expected, and Schaefer has been way better than I expected coming into the season. And so it's like, I don't think, if it were me, I don't think I would be able to say Hagens at one over those other two guys. But either of those two, you could have that discussion. But Hagens is not far behind. So it's an interesting situation where I think if you're drafting third overall and you lose both lottery balls, if you're San Jose or something, and you end up with a Hagens, I think you're laughing. But I don't know. That's where I come down on it. I love all three of these guys for different reasons. And the big thing for me with Hagens is he's getting more physical. He's throwing himself around a little bit more, mixing things up a lot more than he was at the beginning of the year. And just getting himself involved defensively more than I saw him at the beginning of the year. So he's working on things. I think he's getting more comfortable, and we'll see where it goes. But they're all real good players.
Yeah, I think with Hagens, for me, it's the playmaking's there. You mentioned how he's supposed to be this speedy guy that jets around the ice, and I've always seen him as more agile than speedy. He's able to escape with his edges and different things like that, and I think that's still very much there in the college game. So I don't, like you said, like, he hasn't done anything wrong. I said it earlier too. It's just that Misa has come back from the injury he had last year. If I'm not mistaken, it was a shoulder. And the fact that he was playing on a team that was gunning for the Memorial Cup on home ice. They ended up winning it, and they brought in guys like Owen Beck, who just kind of took his spot in the lineup. Now he's been given the ability to be the lead dog for that team. They brought in a guy like Igor Chernyshev, who, now that he's healthy, seeing those two play together is
Oh my God.
absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, it's
Because you're starting to see that playmaking side of Misa come out even more. Now that he has a teammate that can keep up with him mentally and kind of keep up with him on the ice, you're getting that playmaking side of Misa where all year long everyone was like, look at him score goals. Look at the goal scoring streak he's on. He's got 50 and 50. All these things are absolutely fantastic. The kid's been unreal this year. But you're seeing the playmaking that was going a little bit unrewarded earlier in the season come out now. And you're seeing it get rewarded. And Chernyshev's just putting up a boatload of points. I forget what the number is. It's like 24 and 10 games or something.
27 and 9 the last time.
Yeah, like it's something so stupid. Like, it's unreal how good those two have been together. And I watch Misa and I go, that's a guy that absolutely takes control of the ice every shift he goes out there. And I think his defensive game is getting better. He's, like you said, his skating on the back checks are more consistent. He's getting back and helping out in his own end. I think Misa is a guy that ends up being a really solid number one center for a team. He's not elite. He's not that elite. He's not McDavid, Matthews, that tier. But I don't see much separating him from that next tier of top end centers.
Agreed.
So I think that's the big thing with Misa, and that's why I have him at number one. Spoiler. And Schaefer, you guys mentioned everything about him. I absolutely love this kid. The transition game that he has. Everyone talks about the offense. Everyone talks about his defensive play and how he skates to defend. He leads with his stick, does a really good job of cutting guys off. All of these things are absolutely true. The area of his game I've said from the start of the year that impresses me most is his ability to absolutely turn the play around, transition the puck up the ice with such efficiency, and just put his team in a position to play offensive hockey. It's not that he's out there being this Cale Makar, and he does do some of that stuff at the junior level. I don't know if he will at the NHL level, but he has offensive skill that allows him to make a difference in that end of the ice. But it's the fact that he just takes the puck off your stick and ends up flying up the ice in transition, breaking ankles in the neutral zone and putting defenders on their heels there, that starts to create chaos in the offensive zone, and that allows him to do his thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be so fun to watch those two go forward. And then, like you said, Hagen's at 3 or Hagen's at 4 if someone wants to go and take a Porter Martone or someone like that, because we always get a surprise in the top 5. It's going to be interesting because Hagen's is such a good player still as well. And I think there's a lot of development still with him to go. So it's going to be fun, because if he doesn't go first, like, let's be honest, everyone who goes first overall goes right to the NHL unless your name's Owen Power or Eric Johnson in the last like 20 years.
Yeah.
So this almost takes some pressure off Hagens. If he goes back to school next year, which I don't think would be a bad idea,
No,
that's a great situation for him, because now he's not being placed with that expectation of going right into the NHL. I look at a guy like Will Smith, and I think that going back to school for him was a great idea, because anyone that thought he could play in the NHL year one was absolutely out of their mind. I think we looked at Owen Power and we said he needs to go back to the NCAA. He did, and he came out better for it, and he still has his issues at the NHL level. I think putting the pressure to play in the NHL on year one, whether you're first overall or fourth overall or whatever you are, is asinine at this point in the game, because the NHL game has gotten so fast and so skilled and so strong and so good that you're asking a guy that just turned 18 or maybe is soon to be turning 19 to step in and play a prominent role in your team, because let's be honest, if you're drafting that high, your team probably sucks, and it's not going to go well for that kid. He's going to lose confidence. He's going to struggle. It's why we saw Jack Hughes have a tough first couple of years in the NHL, and now he's one of the most exciting centers in the league. But you need to give these guys time, and I think this could be a blessing in disguise for a guy like James Hagens.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's been a fascinating year, to say the least. And you'll note the one name we didn't say was Porter Martone in there. That's another player that I took a look at today. Sorry, Sam, I cut you off. What's going on? Where are you?
I was just gonna say, I think most people have come to the terms that he has kind of slipped out of what was seen as a consensus top 4, is now kind of reshaped into a consensus top 3, and Martone is kind of like the guy at the top of the next year for most. But I think, at this point in the season, most people have kind of accepted that he's not listed amongst the big 3.
So I'm just gonna quickly take a look at the most recent rankings in my database here. So when I look at my Wade average, it looks like we're looking at an order of Schaefer, Hagens, Misa, Martone, Eklund, Frondell as those top 6.
All right.
McQueen is in there. Dane Wye has been on a bit of an upswing lately. I've seen people putting him in the top 10, further into the top 10. So there's that happening as well. But anyway, I mean, yeah.
That.
So you
That's
into
a
it?
choice. Are we done with Desnoyers? Like, is that the conversation we're having?
Is that forthcoming on Tony's ranking? You got you on the Caleb Desnoyers Kool-Aid now, or what?
I will say the top 6 that you listed are my top 6. The top 3 are.
Dork.
Yeah, I know. The top 3 are in a different order than what you listed, and the next 3 are in a different order than you listed. But it is Misa, Schaefer, Hagens right in that top tier. And it almost feels like at this point for me, it's Misa, Schaefer in the top tier, Hagens in a tier of his own, and then you get the Eklund, Frondell, and Martone tier in any order you please. I won't reveal exactly the order I have them in yet, but that is kind of the next tier. Eklund is at the top of the tier. I'll say that.
Come to the peer
Frondell is a guy that I think deserves more love, and that was the other guy I wanted to bring up because Will, I know how much you hate him personally as a human being and a hockey player.
You gotta show the people the dartboard you have with Anton Frondell's face on it, where you just throw darts at it all
Will,
day.
Talk to me about. Let's have a therapy session. Lay back. Talk to me. What is it about this kid that you're just not buying into? Because everyone I talk to that I respect, which is like 3 different people.
It's just the 3 of us.
You ain't one of them.
Yeah, we're all in. Yeah, I'm not one of them.
Mikal home.
Yeah.
And everyone seems to love Frondell, and I think I have him higher than the rest of the group, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Mikal's higher than me, but
he's Swedish and biased, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah. So it doesn't even matter. But Will, you were notably lower on him by a significant margin. And by significant margin, I mean like 3 spots.
Yeah. I mean, is it?
So talk to us.
Is it significant if it's like 3 guys in between? No. I mean, okay, look, I will say one thing, and Tony, you're not privy to this information before tonight. But on Friday, I don't have I have my notebook here, but we didn't take a look at Frondell that night. But I do remember sort of banging around that range on my list, and a lot of the guys, I just kind of sat back and I went, I think Frondell might be a better NHL player at the end of the day than these guys, or at least I have less spooks about him. Like Frondell is a player where whenever I watch him, no spooks. You get what you get when you watch him. You can see why he's playing pro hockey. You can see why he played pro hockey last year. You can here and there, I should say. You can see why he is who he is, right? I think that the range he is in is extremely close. And with Frondell, I see a guy who in the NHL, I think will be extremely good at a handful of things, but those handful of things are very important. Are they the most important things to be like an elite level NHL player? I don't think so, but they are definitely necessary. So for me, when I watch Frondell, I always know he's gonna try at least to have a physical edge over his opponent, whether he has the puck, doesn't have the puck. He's got a great sense of body positioning. He has a great way of getting himself to loose pucks or getting himself out of pressure or whatever, right? Like he just has that ability where if he's in the NHL and two, he's getting double teamed, and he'll move heaven and earth to find his way out. The other thing too, if you need a guy to just go to the net, find some room in scoring areas off the puck, he will do it. He just does that as much as he can. Like my data, he just generates shot after shot after shot after shot, and he does not waste them by sort of lobbing them from the perimeter. He's got a really good shot as well, really quick release. There's a lot to like about him. I think as well that I see a lot more success with him as a winger than as a center, but I mean you could see him as a center for sure, but I could see him being a top 6 winger on an NHL team with a speedy, skilled center and a really good playmaking guy on the other side, and Frondell's the guy that mucks it up really well, goes to the net, gets open for shot opportunities and does all the hard work really well. So I don't know. I like him, and when I watched other guys in that range, I kept looking at guys like Carter Bear and Ben Kindle and Lyndon Lakovich, and then I kind of just went, those guys definitely bring a lot more like fanciness and skill level and pace in their game, but one-on-one against Anton Frondell probably wins those battles a lot of the time. Like he will probably find a way to come out on top. I have some guys ahead of him that I think are more exciting players that I think could really move the needle for an NHL team. But I mean, if you wanted him as high as 6, I could, you could convince me, right? So it's not a matter of my passionate distaste and hatred for the individual, not the
Yes, it
player.
is.
But it's more about like what you weigh and value and all of these things. And I know people might think more of him than that, but I think that what I'm saying about him is very complimentary, and that I think that his role in the NHL could be very important. It's just a matter of, maybe I'm under appreciating how important what he brings to the game is, but I do like him. And I think in recent times, watching him a little bit more and just seeing the other guys that I had ahead of him, I kind of go, yeah, you know what? Sure, I get the appeal of a guy like that really high and whatever, but I'm also not gonna. I'm also, I'm not jumping for the stars on him, really. I don't think, but he is a really good player, and I'll be very curious to see where he goes in the NHL draft and where he goes in his career.
I agree with you in the sense that I think he looks a little bit better as a winger instead of a center. The reason is pretty much exactly what you said. I think we had a conversation about this on Friday, kind of about like the type of players we want as our centers and the type of guys we want moving the puck on our ideal team. And I do agree, you want a bit more of a speedier transition based player, someone who can control exits and entries a bit more, whether it's pass or carry. And Frondell matches those types of play, or Frondell plays off of those guys exceptionally well. I think that he has great instincts off the puck, so he can play off of them in transition and route off them effectively, support them when necessary, or stretch the ice when necessary. He can be a monster on the dump and chase and just recovering pucks and getting it out front. The thing with Frondell, what's funny is I think you actually have a more accurate assessment on Frondell than some of the other things that I've seen realistically on like what strengths he has and what weaknesses he has, because he isn't some like transitional monster, but the way some people read it, or you read some people say, and you think he's a much more skilled and dynamic player in transition, that you've got Victor Eklund playing on right there as well. And you could see like, okay, there is a bit of a gap between a guy like Eklund moving the puck and a guy like Frondell. But you could also see that a guy like Frondell could just physically endure so much more, keep possession of the puck, and find those like real quick, easy, but deceptively skillful and hard to execute plays. Like there's been times where I see Frondell like race to a puck and he gets it, and it's just like this really quick, smooth hook pass as he's
Yeah,
turning, and it
yeah,
flies into the slot. And it's
yeah,
like, okay, those plays are the high skill plays, or these like really quick, like the instincts to generate is there, but he doesn't have the super high end skill to regularly dangle guys off the way that a James Haggins does, or a even Michael Misa. Like, because we don't need to reopen the Misa Haggins conversation, but even in Eklund, who does have a bit more touch with the puck when he's in motion and going for these sustained carries, Frondell has so much to offer that's kind of unique. He's almost more comparable to just Porter Martone in general, but like a Porter Martone who's already playing pro, a Porter Martone who's already kind of like figured out how to execute these high skill plays with that pace without losing the momentum of the flow of the play, not just from himself, but like the team structure around him. That's kind of so I think like it's an accurate assessment of Frondell. And I have him not in the top 6 because there's a certain guy that you and I both have. I'm pretty sure you still have him higher. I know I still have Cullen Potter higher. And that's just because Potter is like cracked with the puck. Like the dude is just insane. But like beyond that, and Jackson Smith, who I also have above him, it's the 5 names mentioned earlier: Misa, Schaefer, Haggins, Eklund, Martone, Potter, and then Jackson Smith as well. And you could have a conversation. I'm with you. You could have the conversation with Frondell all the way up to 6. Maybe you have the conversation with Frondell past Martone at 5. Maybe. I don't
could
know.
see that, but maybe. I don't know.
Like, and it's a stretch. It's a tough one, right? Because like with then you start taking away from a lot of the cool stuff Porter Martone can do, and like you start like really
Yeah.
downplaying what he is as a player. You don't want to start
Right.
doing stuff
No.
like that just to like force an agenda. But the idea is that like Frondell is an excellent player. I think he's advertised a little falsely, but I think the people here kind of have like a pretty solid read on what he does bring. And I think the NHL has a great read on it too, which is why they have him so high still. Like I remember being shocked when I think it was Mackenzie had him at what, 3 or something?
Yeah, I
Or
think
3 or
so.
4?
Yeah,
I was
something like that.
my jaw was like, okay, but like cool, like in a good way. Like not one of those like, wow, they have you that high. That's interesting. Okay, cool. It was like, oh wow, that one actually is interesting. Cool.
I still do think he'll be gone before I would take him though. Like
I agree.
I
I
think
don't
an
think he'll
NHL
be there
team's
at
going to
8.
see him and go, "Yep, that's our guy." Because it seems more and more likely that he's like right in there with those top end guys. And I mean, granted, I feel like the way the top few picks in the draft go, it recently in the last couple of years, and like the last week and a half before the draft, nobody knows what's going on, and then all of a sudden it gets completely jumbled, and next thing you know, Anton Frondell's the 2nd overall pick and James Haggins goes 8th, right? Like, so I don't know what the real story is going to be. But yeah, he just seems like a player that I like, but might be a little bit a little bit too spicy for me if where he's actually gonna go. But yeah,
Okay. That's
I
fair.
don't know.
I think everything you guys said about Frondell is completely accurate, and I think the fact that the guy's lost a lot of the last 2 years to injuries
That's
is
also
going to
really
impact
good.
his draft stock. Like, there's no way it doesn't. His development's been affected, and we saw when he first came back this year that he was a step or two behind. He just wasn't really at like pro hockey pace or just hockey pace in general. And what I've said about Martone is, or sorry, Frondell, is that every time I've watched him since he's come back from injury, in both situations this year where he was injured, he got better every game. Every time I watched him, he got a little bit better. He got a little bit faster. He got a little bit more dynamic. Those little hook passes that Sam was talking about, those races to pucks where he's winning them outright now rather than forcing himself to kind of lean into the defender to establish position just to make sure he wins it. He's just winning it and has a free run to kind of skate into a position where he's more favorably offensive, more favorable offensively. These are the things that I'm starting to see with him where I go, that's starting to pay off on the things I was seeing last year. That's starting to show that development that he was missing. And I think like you guys said, he's been ranked highly on a few big lists like Bob's on Central Scouting. I think he's still fairly high up there if I'm not mistaken. But this is a guy that I think has that next level that's still kind of bubbling under the surface. I think where he's playing right now on the wing with Eklund on the other wing is so perfect because you have that high speed, high skill guy. You guys talking about him being a better winger than a center. I agree with you for the most part, but I look at him and I go, well, what if he played with a winger like William Nylander? What if he played with a guy like that?
Well, what if I played with
speed?
William Nylander?
Well, I mean, yeah. if anybody play, if you or I play with William Nylander, we're probably doing decently. But no, if he played with a poor man's William Nylander or somebody else that can transition the puck up the ice and do that part of the job for him, is that where he can kind of reach his peak as a center? Obviously, that's a really favorable position, but having that fallback of being a really solid top six winger, I look at him as a guy that an NHL coach is going to absolutely love, and that's maybe why he goes a little higher than where any of us have him, quite frankly. But I look at him and I go, that's the guy that you move around a line and you go, okay, we're going to put you on the second line because they're really struggling right now, and we need you. We just need you to make that one extra play to get the puck into a favorable position in the middle of the ice for X player here, or we need our star to get going, so we're going to put you on his wing for a couple of games and get you going. So I look at Frondell and I go, there's so many things where I would love to see him kind of placed in an NHL lineup, and I can see him doing a variety of different things. And I think he could be a pretty solid middle six center. I think he could be a really good top six winger. I think that versatility also kind of plays into why I like him so much. And he is making so many more plays. And there are some things where, especially when he first got back to the Allsvenskan after the recent break with the junior team that he had last month, where he was making passes that I don't think the players he was playing with at the time were expecting. And then you started to see him play with Eklund, and you started to see him get even more success with those passes, get more success with the plays that he was making, the little bumps in transition. Because as you guys mentioned, I don't think he's the guy in transition. I don't think that's going to really ever be his thing. But I think he's a perfectly capable complementary transition guy. He's that guy that's just up along beside you, kind of weaves through the space. He's so good at being a kind of a pocket finder off puck. And when you have a guy like that playing in transition next to a guy that wants the puck in transition, when that guy gets closed in on, he has the perfect player to bounce it out to and then get the return pass back out to the wall or in the middle of the ice, wherever he's at. So I think Frondell is going to be really interesting. Like I said, I joked about you hating him. I joked about you being significantly lower, but it's really a matter of like, I think the entirety of this group spans 3 to 5 spots. So it's an interesting player because he is a guy that I think, like you said, you don't worry about him. You don't get spooked. So you kind of know he's going to be in that top echelon.
Right.
But is a guy that you really like. Is Willie Mecklen still going to be there when Anton Frondell goes off the board? And if he is, I don't know if I would have made that pick. Right. And I think that's kind of where we're all at.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I
enough.
hope that this conversation was good enough to get Frondell out of Will's second round. You know?
If that. He's working his way up one day at a time, you know. I will say I'm going to interject and throw one more out there because I want to do this. And thanks to Brian Stewart, passionate supporter of the project for many, many years.
Oh no.
Throwing in the in a server that I'm in with him that the one of my personal favorite outlets has updated their draft ranking as of the 18th of February, and somehow I missed it. But hockeyprospect.com has a top 32 available publicly, and they have a player ranked 24th overall, and it spooked me for a split second because I thought I was the guy in the world who had this guy ranked the highest out there. But and I still am, but they've also caught the bug. And I'm wondering if you guys can guess who this player is. And no, it is not the guy in Sweden we all have been watching. And
okay, I didn't think it was him, but is it
it's not him?
Is it Riker?
It is indeed Riker Lee.
I knew it. I knew something about that.
Has appeared in a first round elsewhere, and at a place where
he's
I
in
like
the middle of my first spoiler alert.
Yeah, he's at 21 for me as of today. I adore
Tony, we gonna get
Riker
any?
Lee.
We gonna get any idea what you've got, or no?
He's
where
probably
he
like,
is?
I don't know, 5th round.
I have Riker Lee at 16th overall.
Yeah.
Like,
You're
I
both crazy.
love Riker Lee. But I've loved Riker Lee for a very long time when he played for Shattuck and was like probably the most dominant prep junior, just high school player I think I have ever seen. out of all the kids that we've watched for nationals and just the puck reps coverage and stuff like this, like Riker Lee still is the one when I think of the human highlight reel. He just outskilled and outmaneuvered players to such an extent it was like watching Patrick Kane out there. But the thing before was Riker Lee was not big. He was very small boy. And now Riker Lee has grown into an NHL caliber frame. And people, I do not blame anybody who saw Riker Lee in the beginning of the season and were like, I don't know about this one, because he was clunkier. There was a smoothness to his game that previously existed that was not there. But I implore everybody to please look at this talented ass player again, because he's kind of doing what Beckett Seneca did last year. With Beckett Seneca was also a player who grew massively. Granted, Riker Lee hasn't grown like Seneca did, but like Seneca was clunky, but had those absurd moments of high end skill, and you're like, I don't know. And I was on the side that was like, I don't know. And I kind of like, I look at this back now and I'm like, okay, yeah, I kind of did overthink that one a little bit relative to some of the names I had ahead. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. I still think third was a bit extra, but like based on what Seneca could do at his peak, I could see how an organization buys into that and can totally prove all of us wrong. Riker Lee is like a little bit more of like a, I don't want to say discount version of it, because to say discount version would underrate Lee's absurd, disgusting levels of skill that are starting to really show out on a, I don't want to say a shift to shift basis, but like you watch 5 shifts in a row and you don't see Lee doing something crazy, you're a very unlucky person at this point, because Riker Lee has like started taking games over. He is one of the best USHL prospects I've seen in recent years. And I'm sitting there looking at guys on the list and I'm like, do I have players ranked ahead of them because I'm supposed to have them ranked ahead of them, or do I have them ahead of them because they're actually better than him? Once I started asking that question, I was like, well, a lot of these guys just aren't doing it like he is. He has enough of a game into him where I think there is a bit of a floor where you can be like, he's not like some boom or bust prospect. Like you can kind of like, he's really smart. I can see how he can kind of like become a bottom 6 skill guy who contributes a bit more, and you kind of see him like hit these crazy highlights once in a while, like that one move where a crowd goes, whoa, and then like he doesn't do much for the rest of the game. And this is a draft where there's not a lot of guys who even have that as a possibility. So like it's hard to rank him much lower than like I think middle of the first might be a bit extra to some people. I totally get that. But like I don't see how you could take a guy like that in the second, or like not take him in the first round. And then when you look at what he can do at his best relative to names like Braden Coots, Jake O'Brien, Malcolm Spence, Shane Vinsagi. And I'm saying these are guys who I rate highly. Like, I don't dislike these players. Like, I think they're quality players who you should be taking in the first round at it. But, like, when I see what Lee is doing at his best, it's like, I don't know. Unless you have no faith in you, the average USHL defender, and just don't respect the league, like, you have to then, by nature, respect the talent.
I can hear Tony's arms crossing and harumphing. I can feel it.
Listen, you guys have mentioned Riker Lee in conversations we've had before. I've tried so hard with him, and I see why you guys like him. I like the skill, some of the, like the feints that he does. I was just looking through my own scouting notebook. I keep a list of guys, and I go through not every game, but I do like a little mini scouting report on a single game for guys. And I've got 4 for Riker Lee so far this year. And every one I'm like, man, he's fun, but like, what the is he gonna be? Because like
that's fair.
The skill is there, the offensive game is there. Some of the things I see him do from a passing perspective, he's got a good shot. I wonder about his mobility and whether it's going to be enough to really.
I think it's improving, but I get where
it is getting better, and I will give him that. I definitely think it's getting better from the start of the season and from last year, the limited viewings I had then. But I wonder if the mobility is there, and just his absolute lack of care in the defensive zone. There have been times where I watched him one time, and I have it noted here. He was just kind of skating around the top of the defensive zone, and like, that's fine, whatever, do your thing. And a puck went through his feet one way from D to D, and then he put his stick down on the ice because it was parallel to the ice, and it went under his stick the other way.
Oh,
And I was
no.
like, he's just living life out there. And then the craziest thing is, going back the other way on that same shift, he had a great offensive chance, set up a guy in the back door. That's the ability that he has. Like, I don't doubt the offensive skill. I don't doubt the passing specifically, some of the puck handling he has. But I wonder about, is he going to be able to escape pressure when things are a little bit more high stakes than the USHL, which I think has. I love the USHL. I'm normally the biggest USHL booster. Like, I'll pump it up. I think this is a down year for the USHL specifically.
Yep.
The league play has kind of felt a little less intense this year. And I think just that's kind of the reality where a guy like this is able to take advantage and put up some decent points and everything. So he is one of the few USHL guys I really like in this draft. And I say that as a guy who has him kind of outside the first round, but not far outside the first round. But if I'm a GM and I'm at the table and I'm there's a scout like pounding the table for Riker Lee at 24 or 25 or even 20, I'm at least considering it, because that potential, those highlights, those flashes are there and they're fun, and I want to see those at the NHL level. If I do that, I'm going right to him and I'm going, okay, I need you to work on this. I need you to pretend to care defensively, at least have your stick on the ice, and just get into better spots, like get into better positions defensively. And I think that for the most part, that's something you can coach. But the mobility is the one thing that I'm like, all right, here's the skating coach, call her 3 times a week in the summer, and we'll see in the fall.
I think all of those are fair points as well. My only thing like that I would say is, like, it helped that I have seen him for years, so I kind of have a basis of what. And this was an issue before. Like, you're not wrong about it. It's an issue that a lot of those prep guys have when they come up to the USHL, because the prep style defense, and just like when you watch like nationals, like, it's a lot of effort at moments, but it's not a lot of structure. And then when it comes into structure, it's almost like they don't know how to apply their effort. I don't know if Riker Lee is someone who I totally see what you mean. Like, this year, it is almost irrefutable that he is kind of like looking like he's not putting in the effort at points. I am of the optimist side that this is something that he will work through, but I can't, again, like, if you hadn't already seen him and had a familiarity, which I will admit, like, almost biases me towards him in some senses, like, it's pretty fair. Completely unrelated to this, if only there was a guy who could, like, work through some video with him and try and get a bit of, like, where his head is at. I don't know anybody who does that type of work, but if I did, I think that guy would do pretty well uncovering some of these variables for us.
What I will say about that is, I have tried the whole, here's a really bad play you made. Can you explain it to
Right.
me? Generally doesn't go well.
I don't mean it
Yeah.
in that sense. I just
What
mean,
I-
like, just get in the player's head, which you do
Yeah, and-
exceptionally well. Now that I'm going to be
And
like, you
he
good at
would be a
this.
guy that would be really fun to actually sit down with now that you talk about it. And there are times where with certain players, I will put a clip in where it's not a great play to start. They make a very obvious mistake to start, but something goes well at the end and they result with a point or a scoring chance or something. And I want to see if they notice that first part before we get to that goal or the assist or the great scoring
I've
chance.
picked up on some of this.
And it's about 50-50 that players do. And then I will always go back to Seamus Casey, who I thought had a great play on the breakout, went up the ice, joined the rush and scored, and he absolutely ripped himself apart on that play. So I will always respect Seamus Casey for that. But yeah,
Cases
regularly he would be a really interesting guy to sit down with and talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I guess to close that discussion out, because it is very interesting, and he's a player who has really popped up for me in the last, I'd say, month and a half. Because the first few games I saw earlier in the year, I did not see what I've seen in the last few games I've seen at all. And it seems like his production has really just sort of kept on, going, up and up and away. I think with him, and I won't take up too much time, like I think in this draft, if you're looking for creative playmakers and like offensive players, who actually have like projectable levels of creativity and offense and everything, I think the floor drops out real fast in this draft class in terms of really high end skill, vision, passing ability, all in conjunction. And what I mean by that is like seeing multiple lanes, drawing pressure and moving pucks into open lanes and, making quick cuts to create 2 feet of space and then threading a pass across the ice, right? Like nobody really does that in this draft past like 20 for me. At least it doesn't happen very often. And when I watch him, he has like, I don't track this because obviously it's insanely stupid, but I in terms of like woohoo moments per 60 minutes on the ice, like he very quickly becomes the best, like most exciting woohoo moment guys in the entire class. And like around him on my list, it's like, yeah, I could see this guy being a third line, complementary physical guy. This guy could be maybe a good middle pair defenseman who could maybe kill penalties, But then you watch highlights of Riker Lee. And I know, Tony, you questioned his defensive zone play, and I think that's fair. But I also think he's a real pesky bugger defensively on the rush. Like he can be aggressive. Like he goes after guys and tries to sort of clog play up and does the things that I think a winger needs to do. But does he look for the breakout pass in the neutral zone? And does he kind of cheat a little bit for his offense? And maybe he's not the most 200-foot impactful guy right now. Yeah, I can't dispute that. But like the woohoo moments are there. But anyway, I, obviously, because I have to have the last word because this is my show. Before we go on to questions, is there anybody else either of you want to have a discussion with? Because it's not very often all of us are together. We can make the audience wait for us to answer their questions. So let me know what's going on, or do we move on?
I was gonna say, you know what? Let's do the Danoye conversation, but that's a question. I believe there is a question
Okay.
on that one. So
Well,
we
I mean,
can
in that case, we may as well get into that because if it is a question, okay, unless you have something else.
I just want to make a comment that I really wanted to make like 35 minutes ago.
Okay. All right.
And I just want to bring up one player and say Igor Chernyshov has 3 points per game in the OHL right now. 3 points per game. And there was one lunatic last year who had him ranked like 8th or 9th overall.
Okay, here we go.
And I don't know who he is, but rumors have it that he has Riker Lee at 16.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
He's an idiot 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
He's an idiot lunatic 2 years in a row, and nobody should follow him. Anyways, let's do the questions. I don't know
playing with Michael Misa sure helps a guy like you or Chernyshov.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, he has been extremely good. Yes?
Yeah.
No.
Or are you done? You're done. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I guess on that case, let us get into the questions as your ADHD subsides. Let's get into this.
ADHD never subsides.
It doesn't. It consumes.
I'm pretty sure we have 4 ADHD people in the room right now. Maybe 3. I don't know about Tony, but definitely.
I definitely think that's.
You have no idea what I'm doing with my hands under the camera.
I don't want to know. Please.
Pause.
I didn't mean that. I'm a gentleman.
He's just like this the whole time.
I don't do it on
I keep
Zoom.
doing this stuff. It's all weird stuff, and I do it to like make sure I'm not like doing what Sam does and just disappearing off the screen from time to time.
I wield a pencil. That's my thing.
I tend, if I cross my arms, I stay centered. It's as soon as my arms get uncrossed that I start to just like
the inertia takes over.
Yeah, like just the brain fog.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all ADHD.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It's ADHD all the way down. Okay, let's get into the questions here. Then, will we be streaming on draft day? Yes, we will be, and it's going to be awesome. I don't know why we don't have any specific plans, but there are plans. There are concepts of a plan.
It may involve everybody here.
It'll be great. It'll involve however many people say yes, and we're going to have a great time. It's going to be an all-day affair. tons of fun. And I don't know what the exact situation is going to be, but yes, we are doing a show this year. I have missed doing a show live on draft day. It's been a couple of years. And honestly, being in the Sphere last year for rounds 2 through 7 was really cool. But by about round 4, I was very tired of being so cold, and I just wanted to get out of there. But
Will also
I don't
wanted
know.
to make more money.
I did. And also, like, it was nice seeing the one person wearing a Finn Harding jersey finally get rewarded in the 7th round with a Finn Harding draft pick. So that was pretty cool too.
That's awesome.
Anyway, yes, we will be doing a show of some kind, so don't worry. David Phillips, thoughts on Alexander Pravalov, a 2007 born goaltender playing for the Red Army team? I mean, he probably sucks, just like everyone else. But he also asks where his invite was. We'll get to him. You know, David, you know, you haven't been around lately, so you know, you haven't been in the forefront of the show, so forgive me, but maybe soon we got some people we need to have on as well, and you're probably on that list, I guess. Thoughts on Mikkel Eriksson? I don't know who wants to field this one, because I imagine all of us are somewhat familiar with Mikkel Eriksson, Thorjestad Norwegian boy. Unless I kick it off, but who wants to jump in, or do you want to throw it at me?
I'll say this. I was higher on Mikkel Eriksson at the start of the year, and there's just, you watch a player sometimes and you're like, okay, they're producing, they look fine, but fine at the J20 level, or even above fine at the J20 level, isn't really going to do it for you in the future. Definitely worth a draft pick, but he's a guy that's kind of tumbled down my board, just mostly because I'm like, would I take him over this guy, him over X player? And the other guy always kind of takes precedent. So I think he's an interesting player. He's a guy that will get drafted. I think he probably gets drafted before I would take him, simply because there's going to be a guy I like better whenever he does go.
Yeah, I've seen quite a bit of Eriksson this year. I like him. I guess I like the idea of him. And I think that he could be an interesting long-term project guy who I just don't think there's a high-end North American player there. I think he's got small player problems. You know, he's not really quick enough to evade pressure at higher levels, not really skilled enough to do it. He's not driving enough results at 5-on-5 for me, where I'm going, yeah, I think he's going to buck the trend and be one of these 5'10" guys who makes it and figures it out in the NHL, even as a winger. I just don't really see it. Even when he played in the Norwegian league, I also didn't really see it a whole lot. Really skilled though. Like, he's a really fun player to watch from time to time, but he's just not driving the bus enough for me to be a guy where, again, it's like the question I always ask myself is this guy ever going to be the number one guy where I'm prepared to say their name at the draft table? And with him, I don't think the answer to that is yes. But I mean, I still like his teammate, Elias Vatna. I think he showed pretty well in the SHL, but he is also a small guy, but he's faster, more skilled, more aggressive, and still isn't, I don't think, has enough in the tank to be an NHL player. So with Eriksson being a bit also concerning for different reasons and not bringing the same positives, I don't know. I for me, it's just I've seen him a bunch of times, and he's never really sort of been one of those guys that crosses that threshold, I suppose. Okay, judging by Sam's silence, we can move on. Thoughts on?
I got just whatever.
Yeah, you figured it out. You got it. Thoughts on Brent Solomon? That's a high school player. I don't know.
Like Brent Grundy better.
God. Oh boy. I will. Okay, so this guy is he's got 37 goals in 27 games in high school in Minnesota. I've never seen him play before, but he has more goals than assists in high school hockey, and automatically that's a
Will
no for
hates
me,
him.
dog. No, I'm half kidding. But I guess I'll check him out, because I am a Cooper Simpson fan and he scores a lot of goals. But I don't know who this is. I don't know if either of you have seen this guy, Brent Solomon.
No, I saw the question and I added him to my list, and I'm like, I will watch him.
Yes, I'll put him on my list.
Looking at the 37 goals and 11 assists, I was like, cool.
Yeah, just give him the puck and he blasts it from wherever. Do you think Porter Martone's going to fall in the draft due to inconsistencies in skating, especially to players like Frondell and others playing better? Well, I mean, I saw Porter Martone today, and I mean, it was a good game. He's been very good. I think he has a skill level and a pass vision that I don't think Frondell has, but I don't think they're that far off. It's a difficult decision. I think if you had to pick between the two, I think I still lean Martone because he has a bit more of that pace to his game, that creativity and skill level, and I think his finishing ability, it's there as well. But I agree. Like I think Martone is a player where it's like when push comes to shove, is he at least in the top 3? I am not as confident on that at all. I have him at 5 right now. I don't know, guys. What do you think? I don't know about fall in the draft because I think
I
teams are
don't
going to like him as a
think
person, but we'll see.
I don't think he falls. But the one thing with Martone that I find interesting, because we're always entering these types of conversations, like there's the general, I wouldn't say just a general thought of the public and even by a lot of scouts, like one of the easiest things to develop post draft, not a guarantee, but one of the easiest things is skating. You can see a play, not like you won't take a average or above average skater and make them Brad Lambert, but you can absolutely improve lateral agility and first step explosion a fair bit. Enough to the point where, like, for a player like Martone specifically, it would be the difference maker, I think.
Yep.
I don't think it's the lack of pace. I struggle saying that he has low pace because I don't feel like he plays his mental pace is behind. It's just sometimes his feet aren't moving at the same speed as what he's trying to do, and then he kind of goes like, "Uh-oh, lost that lane." Like he it's a lot of it looks like, I guess I'm speaking specifically on rush examples, like when you see Martone rushing up the ice, and then you see him kind of look for something, but like the defense have covered him, or at least like the gap he was looking to exploit isn't there because he didn't get there in time. So now he has to slow down and try and make a play out of the delay. And those are the moments where I feel like Martone loses his pace and kind of like really loses what the other top guys aren't messing up. Like none of them are messing that up. The like Hagens would hit that, exploit the gap. Frondell would exploit the gap. Eklund would exploit the gap. Potter would exploit the gap, but no one else is considering him a top guy. Martone kind of has to almost enter like a secondary level of problem solving in certain moments. But I don't like if he gets that little bit, he's a demon. He's the same dude that we were looking at the beginning of the year where we were like, he might be the highest ceiling in the class. I don't think that anymore, but you can kind of see like the unique edge he brings. I don't want to call it a Kachuk style, but for what this draft has to offer, it's the closest thing to that coveted Kachuk style. And you just get that extra teensy little bit of speed, and I think he will do wonders. I don't think he falls.
No. I mean, it depends on what fall means, but I don't think he goes that much later. What's gone wrong with Emil Guite's season and falling in the rankings? I mean, I was never a huge fan of Guite in the first place. I just felt like the feat, it was all just sort of someone hands him the puck and he can finish the job, decently physical, but I don't think he really moves the needle much at all. I don't know. I never really saw it with Guite going into the season, so I don't know if you guys would disagree or anything, but he's not on my list right now.
Yeah, for me, I watched him at the Hlinka, and he got a lot of hype there. He scored a few goals, and I looked at him and I went, "Yeah, he's a trigger man. Like that's kind of what he does. When good players pass him the puck, he can finish." And every time I've watched him this season, I'm like, "Okay, you're a trigger man who has 15 goals this year, and sure, like you're not always getting the most minutes on your team and all this stuff, but like there's just not enough there for me. I look at him and I go, maybe he's a really, really solid 19, 20-year-old in the queue. But yeah, there's just not enough outside of that finishing ability. And even that finishing ability, in my opinion, hasn't been nearly what I think anyone thought it was going to be this year. So some team's going to take him late in the draft because he was on the Hlinka team and he had a good August. And those guys always seem to get drafted, no matter how up and down their season is. So I won't be shocked, but it's not really a guy that I've had a ton of faith in anytime I've checked in on him.
Right. Which players, if any, from this upcoming draft do you see making the jump to the NHL next season? That's a very good question. I mean, I think personally that adding NCAA eligibility for CHL players changes the whole ball game.
Yeah.
I think that what might make the most sense is a year in college for guys like Misa, even Schaefer. I don't think Schaefer should go back to the CHL based on what we saw this season at the World Juniors and in the games that he played after the World, or not after the World Juniors, but the games he played leading into the World Juniors. James Haggins, I think, should go back. Porter Martone, even I don't know. I feel like Martone back in the OHL might make sense. But like Victor Eklund being in the NHL, I don't see that. Like Caleb Desnoyers, is he the guy that rockets up everybody's chart and gets picked at 3 and gets an NHL cup of coffee? Like, I don't know, but I wouldn't do it. Like Frondell, maybe, but only because he's like physical enough and resilient enough to handle it. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I would do that. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if none of them do, or at least none of them stick. I don't know if anyone else sees some
think you
other
nailed
option,
it.
really. I don't know. Because with the NCAA being an option, I think that changes a lot. Yeah, I don't know. I think okay, a lot of talk about going back and forth about Locked On Sharks. Hello, whoever it is. Probably JD.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. Someone suggested Marchand, Konechny, and Cirelli come out for Wyatt Johnston, Macklin Celebrini, and Connor Bedard for the Olympics. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe Cirelli, but I don't know.
I like him too much.
Yeah, I like those guys a lot. I mean, Marchand on the ice for how he plays, maybe you could take him off, but
that's the one I'm the most open to.
Yeah, that's probably the one I'm most open to. But does Hockey Canada do, or not Hockey Canada? Does whoever's the GM of the team do that? I don't know.
Probably not.
Yeah. Apparently, we're all looking handsome. That's probably not true.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Well, he said everyone. I don't know. I showered tonight. Every time I shower, I feel like I have more gray hairs. Tony, you know what that's
You should
like.
get that looked at.
I don't know what that's like because I have no hairs.
On your,
I will say,
your head, that is.
The day of my 30th birthday a couple years ago, I went and washed my face in the morning and there's a gray hair in my beard. And I plucked that thing out so fast. It was not okay.
I haven't gotten there yet. It's mostly the sides of the head that are going.
I have a question for
Okay.
Tony. How much shampoo do you use monthly?
Oh my god.
Well, considering my girlfriend has extremely long, extremely thick Lebanese
I didn't ask about her.
We go through a lot of shampoo collectively as a household.
You know what? They're a partnership, right? Everybody tosses
well
it in.
navigated.
You know, yeah, exactly.
I use body wash on my head.
Boy.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I don't know where the face wash ends. I just go until I feel like it's okay, and then body wash back.
Right. Oh my goodness. Is this a Magomed Sharakhanov question? That's
no way.
In a long time. How much should we ding Magomed Sharakhanov's play this draft because of his advanced age? I actually watched a bit of Magomed. Oh my god. Magomed Sharakhanov. I mean, he is a hoot and a half to watch play hockey. I wouldn't draft him, I don't think. But I mean, could the Carolina Hurricanes draft him in the 7th round and see what he does over the next few years? I could see it. I don't know if you guys have seen much of our old friend Magomed from the 2023 drafts, because he has been decent in the KHL this year from what I've seen.
I've not watched him this year.
I
At least
can't
not
say that I
either.
have.
I
Like,
think he scored a lacrosse goal in the KHL
I
this
just
year.
Googled him, and the
Yeah.
first thing that showed up was Reddit, like, who just scored this Michigan?
Right.
And it's him.
Yeah.
So
pretty
that's
sick.
cool.
Yeah, but he'll do that. That's what he does. He does not play NHL style defense. I'll tell you that much. Oh boy,
You can do
does he
something
ever
Austin
not.
Matthews can't.
Right.
So that's a plus.
Yeah.
Win.
Oh.
I'm
Take
gonna mute
that,
you for the
Leaf
rest of this
fans.
call. How's that
Yeah.
sound?
Sam's banned.
You're banned now.
Banhammer. I heard 2 Guelph players in the recent viewings. My favorite team to watch recently, the Guelph Storm, especially when they lose 10-7 to the Saginaw Spirit. They have some fun players though on that team. I did actually watch a game where I saw Max Nemesnikov playing defense, and that was hilarious. So that was a good time. Okay, here we are. Roundtables Desnoyers conversation. I have spoken about Caleb Desnoyers ad nauseum for like a month straight, so I'm just gonna let you guys chew on this and fight over it like a couple of hyenas. I don't know.
You, Tony,
Just
me.
be nice.
You want to rock paper scissors this? Like, how do you want to?
I'll go first because, unlike Desnoyers, I can lead the way when I'm
Oh my
doing
god.
this. I think Desnoyers is a perfectly fine player. I think he's a very good complementary guy. If he's the third guy on the line, I think he's a great play connector. I just don't think he has the ability to kind of drive a line on his own. I know he has a ton of points, but every time I watch him, the best he looks is when someone else is doing the heavy lifting and he's able to make that final pass to set up the goal, or he's able to finish from in tight, or he's able to finish from a good shooting position. He's a very good play connector. He's a very good play finisher, but I don't look at him as a guy that I think is going to drive a line at the next level. I look at him as a guy that you put him next to a Misa, you put him next to an Eklund, and they're going to do stuff. They're going to make a lot happen. I think he's a very good complementary player in a draft that I think has a lot of complementary players. I think last time I was on, we had the discussion of what is a complementary player, and it's a guy that fits a set of tools and has the ability to kind of advance play, connect play, make that one extra pass that you need to make on the play to get the goal, even if he doesn't necessarily get the assist on the goal. He's often the third guy on a line that finds success. He's kind of the finishing touches on a line, and I think that's what Desnoyers is. So do I think he's going to play at the NHL level? Yeah, I do. I think he's going to be a solid NHL guy who is putzing around in your top 9 and kind of, if he's on your top line, it's not because he's necessarily one of your 3 best forwards, because he fits the 2 guys that you have up there. He's on your third line. Maybe he's the best player in that third line, but he still needs someone else to kind of drive the bus a little bit. So I think he's a good player, but like, joke aside at the start of this, like I do think he's a guy that needs some help.
Yeah, he is definitely someone who I think isn't a line driver in the NHL, because I think he's the most productive player on his line, but I don't necessarily think that equates him to the line driver. Desnoyers is not the one who I see drawing in the pressure, creating that space for the other. I see Desnoyers as the guy who is smart enough to recognize when there's space to be taken advantage of. This is like, we've seen this with QMJHL players in years past. This was Josh Waugh's specialty. This was Jordan Dumais' specialty. Desnoyers is a much more projectable version of these guys. He's for sure playing it. He's going to be an impactful player relative, well, maybe not to where he gets picked in the draft, but where, like, if he's like taken at a mid first or something like that, then you know what, I think that's fine. The difficulty with the draft is that, like, I think there's like 10 or so rock stars, and then there's like another 10 to 15 like quality guys. Desnoyers is in that quality guy group. Where do you want to take him, or do you want to take a bit more risk? It's up to each individual. If you value him a little bit higher, I get it to an extent, but he's not out there guiding the puck up the ice consistently in transition. He's not out there beating defenders one-on-one with skill and dynamic ability, setting up other guys. He's the guy who's out there really smart off the puck, gets the puck, does the right thing. As Tony said, like the complementary style role, right? I kind of a player who I usually go back to as like my example as like I call them like the tertiary guys, like the third guy on a line who you need to fill in the gaps. Like you got one guy who's just a bus driver, you've got another one who has some of the it could be a variety of different play styles, I guess. But you typically have like a bus driver, another guy who plays off of them really well, and then the third guy who doesn't touch the puck as much, but when he does, you want him to be as effective with it. That's the role I kind of envisioned Desnoyers having. Um, the example that I was going to go with is Gabe Perreault from 2023 when he played with Smith and Leonard. Smith was the bus driver, but Leonard was also so good in the role that you could argue he was the bus driver and Smith was just the crazy dude with the puck. Perreault was that third guy getting puck touches. It wasn't as with the same frequency as Smith and Leonard, but he played off of them so seamlessly that at a lot of shifts he was the guy taking it over. The problem between Perreault and Desnoyers is Perreault was a skill player. We didn't see the skill that would take over a game or beat out multiple defenders in a row or something like that. But it was the type of skill that he's read the ice correctly. He knows where the space is. He's timed his route into the pocket. He's caught the puck cleanly. He now has a little bit of room to play with it. He's got the skill to do something cool. Desnoyers doesn't really dazzle in those moments either. That's my concern more than anything. It's like, I'm fine with you not being a play driver. Not everybody has to be. It takes away from the strengths of the players, and we could be missing opportunities if you're looking for a bus driver in every single player. But the fact that he's still not having those high end pop moments where you're just like, wow, it does make me kind of go like, eesh. Like the QMJHL defense is lax. It is lackadaisical. It is easy to move pucks through. Smart players thrive consistently. Like we've seen this, Jordan Dumais, Joshua, the guys, and they look like they're smart enough to be in the NHL, but when you see them there, you're like, okay, but the tools are like they don't know how, even if they have the tools, they don't know how to use them at that pace because the gap is so massive. They go from their league to the AHL, and the AHL is going to humble them a bit, but they're still good enough, and they have enough going for them that they're able to work through. But then the NHL is a whole different piece. It's like jumping from the A to the N is in some ways equivalent to the Q to the A. The last thing I'd say for Desnoyers, though, is that at least he does have the stability of a floor where it's like if all goes wrong, well, you put him in your bottom six, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Geez, I feel like I'm the most positive out of all of us
And-
on him. I mean,
No, and what I will say about Desnoyers is that I think he's, like I said, I do think he plays. I think he's a guy that gets into an NHL lineup, but I think he does think the game really well. He sees the ice well. I think he's going to need to speed that up, even though at the next level, because as Sam mentioned there, the Q defenses are very passive. They're not physical. Even when they close the gap, they don't fully close it. They close it like a Tupperware lid that doesn't quite fit. The stuff's not going to fall out unless
analogy.
you really throw it against a wall. But he has that space. He has that extra 2 seconds where he's not going to at the next level. I think he's going to have a bit of a rude awakening until he figures it out, and I think he will figure it out because I do think you use the Gabe Perreault example there, Sam. And I think that was the guy that I was thinking of as well because he does fill those gaps, right? Like you mentioned, Smith is that high-end playmaker. Ryan Leonard's a Bill in the China shop. Well, you need someone to kind of pass those guys the puck or get the puck off of them and different things. And Perreault was fantastic at that. And I think Desnoyers does a really good job of that. So I think people who have him in the top 10 are a little bit ambitious, in my opinion. Maybe that is my QMJHL anti-bias.
Agreed. I think that could be totally at play for me as well.
But I also think that me having him in the 18 to 22 range isn't outrageous. Like I still think he's a first round pick. I'm not anti Caleb Desnoyers in the first round. I just look at him and I go, am I going to pass up a Cullen Potter to draft this guy? Am I going to pass up a Lyndon Lakovich to draft this guy? And I just don't see it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, largely I'm with you. I obviously, if you watch the show, you know my thoughts on this guy. I don't know. He just seems just very fine across the board. And I think there are some issues in the data package on him that are definitely things that you could critique. And it revolves a lot around what Tony and Sam have been saying. So I won't go into too much detail, but he's a guy who I think chips in really well. And how much value does a guy who chips in really well have, right? He's a guy who often gets his chances from in tight, but often because he just physically outmatches the guys he's playing against. And is that a thing that he's going to be able to do at the next level? If he's not, he's very much a perimeter shooter. The data for him in general is okay to good, but a lot of it is once the puck is in the offensive zone. And outside of that, he's a little bit more absent from play. And so is that, how much value does that take? It's just a matter of like, almost like it doesn't matter. Like it's at this rate, it seems like he's going to be a top 10 guy. And I have him in the same range that Tony has him. So we can move on because I think we all kind of agree. But again, it's one of those things where it's like everybody's up here, we're here. So the understanding is that we think he's down there, which is not the case at all. Okay, do you think that Misa playing down the lineup in more of a checking role has benefited his play at all this year? His defensive game and forechecking stand out.
Yes. I actually think that's pretty good analysis.
Yes, I think that's fair. How would you guys rank Eric Nilsson, Martin Sverchek, Milton Yastrin, and Arvid Drott, and just for Tony, Melvin Novotny? Well, I'll start. I've got Sverchek, then Nilsson, then Yastrin, and then Drott, I think. Oh no, Drott then Yastrin, and then
I will go
Novotny.
next. I have Nilsson, Sverchek, Drott, Yastrin, and Novotny is after those guys. And I would like to apologize for hyping Novotny up because the last game I watched may not have been quite as good, and neither was the game before that. I still do like Melvin Novotny. I think it may have been a little aggressive on him though.
He's fun.
He's fun. I enjoy him.
Yeah, he's an enjoyable player.
I think at 20, what was it? Let me see. 20
it was
last
high.
time?
It was high.
It was
a little bit aggressive here, boys.
Yeah, we're all in that boat, I think, on some guys. Anyway, Sam, do you want to add anything to that?
I think mine's identical. It's Sverchek, Nilsson, Drott, and then Yastrin and Novotny.
Got it. Well, that makes sense because every time Sam and I compare our lists, it's 1-to-1, and we never really talk about it, which is
Which is actually just a cover story. What we do is like we literally just share a singular list.
Yeah, exactly.
They've just been working off the same Google Doc for 2 years.
Exactly.
They don't even realize it.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't even notice. Okay.
Sam's like, how did that guy get way up there? I guess I might have seen it.
When did I track that game?
Too much THC last night. I don't know. I lost track of time. Anyway, what game did I watch of Martone? It was February 17th against Niagara. Brampton spanked them. After the big three, would Barrett 4 be completely crazy? Yes, I would say
Feels
so.
like that. Our last game, the game we did on Friday, was a little oofy.
Yeah, he's a good player.
I like Barrett,
I do too, but four is a little.
He is my boy. I think Will and I joked at one point last time I was on about like Bear versus Martone.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Bear at 4 is a little bit aggressive, even though he might be my favorite player to watch in this draft class.
Yeah. Has anyone seen Tyler Hopkins? Because he's on my watch list. I haven't seen him yet. Because I also haven't really seen a tremendous amount that I really like out of him when I have seen him.
Yeah.
Sorry, give me a sec.
Like he's one of those guys to me who's played like a bottom 6 NHL player in the OHL, which I think is problematic. But
okay, I watched him because I remember our good pal and arch nemesis Jordan Millette talking about him during his OHL draft year, and so I was like, okay, like let me check in on this guy. Let me see if he's doing anything at the OHL level. And in the game I watched, he scored a goal and it was a really nice goal. And the rest of the game, he just wasn't there. And then I watched another game and he wasn't there really. Like you said, he's a bottom 6 guy in the OHL already. He plays like one. So I just, the speed is kind of nice, but outside of that, I don't really see a whole lot from him. So I'll definitely watch him at least a couple more times throughout the year. But yeah. I don't know if he's a guy I'm putting on my list, at least not too high.
Yeah,
I think I'm just gonna add the point. Like the question was asking specifically about like, is it a red flag that he seems smart defensively but doesn't engage in the physical quarters and board battles? The answer to that is yes. And
I
also
would
to
say
the
Yeah.
so.
person who said, "Is it? Are we exaggerating Schaefer a bit because of 17 games? There's 17 good ass games."
Yeah, I mean, he was really good in those games, like really good. And I mean, it does throw a wrench into things a little bit because he has been out of play for so long. And there, I guess, adds a bit of risk to the equation. But I'm not concerned about his injury specifically because collarbones, like everybody breaks their collarbone at some point in their life. Like I feel like that's a rite of passage. I haven't, but my dad did because he thought he was Superman. But
Was
whatever.
that the
We don't
rite
need
of
to.
passage?
Yeah, I mean every kid in the 60s probably or 50s probably at some point thinks they're Superman, and then off he goes and hit the ground hard. Anyway, thoughts on Peyton Kettles, fellas? I've seen him recently. I don't know about you guys.
I don't have a whole lot to offer.
He is certainly big and he's certainly pretty okay. That's my read on him. I think he's better than he was at the beginning of the year when I saw him. He's very young, extremely lanky. But I think he's a blank slate guy. I don't know what he is. There's a bit of Shakir Mukhamadullin a little bit to him in my books. Interesting guy with a bit of tools to play around with, but I have no idea what he is. He, has some questionable traits to him, but anyway, interesting guy, but I don't have much there for him. Thoughts on Braden Coots and Cole Reshny? I don't know. I mean, we can go through these pretty quick. I think Braden Coots is a very interesting case for a third line center in the NHL. Speedy, skilled, one of the better puck carriers in the draft, I would say, with all the talent in, all the things necessary to be good at that in conjunction. He's probably right up with the best in the class, but he's a good player. I just don't know if he's got the physical tools or the finishing ability really to be like a top 6 NHL forward, let alone a center. But he's a really good aggressive defensive player. And I don't know if you guys have seen much of Coots recently. I think Sam and I watched a bit of him.
We did
Friday
watch
night,
him
but,
again. Almost every WHL kid we watched kind of had a bad,
yeah, he
not
was
one of
kind
their
of
best
okay.
showings, unfortunately. So that made
Yeah,
ranking the mid first kind of a nightmare.
I
But
gave him a
Coots,
C.
yeah, Coots, C for Coots. It was
Yep.
kind of like it was a solid showing in terms of like effort and like off puck stuff, but when it came to the puck touches, they were hit or miss and infrequent, which is interesting for a player who is actually solid off puck, because usually those are the ones that's being good off puck is literally what it requires to get into the flow of a game and get good consistent puck touches. And it was kind of one of the games where the tools were just not tools, and for lack of it, like just to simplify it as easy as it is,
Yeah.
like, the tools ain't tools, and in that one, and we kind of were just like, well, that's a bit interesting.
Yep. I see where you're
I'm,
coming from.
I'm definitely going to use the tools ain't tools, and when
I'm going to use that again.
Let me write up my ranking for the hockey news.
Yep.
But no, I think Braden Coots is a really good player. I like Braden Coots. You mentioned the curiosity as to whether his offensive game ever really takes that step. There are moments where you see him make
Yes.
a pass where I'm like, oh, I don't
Yes.
even make that kind of pass, or he gets into a scoring area and he makes one move to open up for a great shot and he scores and goes bar down. Like there are moments where you see it, but I do kind of project him as that third line center, like Will mentioned. I really like him. I think he's going to be, if he's your third line center, you've got a good third line center. And he brings that defensive value as well. I think that the effort and mindset he brings defensively is really solid. So I think he's going to be a fairly high draft pick.
Yeah.
Still, I still think he's a very good player.
Yeah.
But I think earlier in the year when I was toying with him inside my top 10, those days are kind of over.
Yeah, I think so too.
But he's not far outside of him. I'll say that.
I will say about him, I think when you take a guy, I think when you take the group of Coots, Zonin, O'Brien, and Desnoyers, I think I give the edge to Coots and Zonin as an NHL needle mover
Agreed.
because of the speed and intensity in their game and how fast the NHL is now and how physical it is and how willing those guys are to muck it up and cause chaos and wreck guys and cause havoc. I feel like there's a little bit of less of that in O'Brien and Desnoyers. They're more sit back, tactical, pass first guys who just I feel like might have a bit of an adjustment period, whereas I feel like Coots and Zonin will not have the same issue. But those guys are all super, super close on my list.
It's funny how you said those names of Coots, Sonnet, and Danoy, because I was about to say almost word for word the exact
Well, that
same
makes
point.
sense.
I just
Yeah,
didn't have O'Brien involved.
Right.
Aren't you guys adorable?
I know,
Thanks.
right?
The hive mind.
Being quick on this, the second half of that question was Cole Reshny. I want to love him. One of the most admirable
I
players
want to
in the
love him
draft.
so much.
I just don't know if he's an NHL player. Like I can't point to him and go, you're going to be an NHL guy. I just
Same,
feel
but
like
I hope I'm wrong.
if he were 6'4", he probably would be a top 15 pick. Like if he were 6'3", a lot bigger. And I know I'm sort of like the size doesn't matter guy, but I think in his case, like he plays a big man's game, and I'm just not sure it's enough.
Yeah, I like you guys said, I want Cole Reshny to be a thing. We'll see.
Yeah,
That's the nicest way. I can say it.
admirable player. I love him. Admirable
player is the best way of saying it.
He's
Yeah.
gonna be awesome when he's 19.
Oh yeah, like he's going to be a heck of a junior player, and maybe I can't say no. Like if he's a guy who goes to Seattle at 48th overall, I'll be like, well, yeah, obviously, sure, you may as well, But in terms of like certainty and NHL stuff, I don't know if it's there. But if he does make it, it'll be nice to file away in the archive of things to learn. He's an overager, but how do you feel about Charlie Serrato?
Ooh,
I think
we
his
like
game has
Serrato
improved
around
since
here.
transition. We really like Charlie Serrato around here. Serrato's almost a point a game with Penn State this year as a freshman.
Really?
I love Charlie
That's
Serrato.
awesome.
Like if he gets drafted, I'd be so happy because he's a guy who is so much fun to watch. Like he's just rambunctious and skilled and quick and agile. And I love guys like him. I didn't realize he's 6 feet now and almost 200 pounds. So that also
Jesus.
works in his benefit. So maybe we got to take a look at Charlie Serrato here as a reentry guy because I love Charlie Serrato. And again, I more guys like Charlie Serrato in the NHL, I'm happy. Okay. Is Martin Johnson worth a pick? Now, there's a name you hear a lot. I wouldn't. I just don't. I've never thought he has like the pace of play or the skill level or the skating ability to be an NHL player, but I also haven't seen much of him, to be honest, this season. He is a point a game player in Hockey Allsvenskan, so there's that. I don't know.
The guy's 30. Stop drafting 30-year-olds.
Yeah, he's turning 21. He's turning 21 in a couple of weeks. So yeah, that's the other thing to keep in mind. Top 5 NTDP kids, and why is Cole McKinney number 1? Ooh, I'll start because, well, I mean, if someone else wants to put their top 5 NTDP guys, obviously we don't have all night, so I'll just bang through them. For me, McKinney, I've got McKinney, Bell, Moore, Mooney, Fondork. That's my top 5, and they're all top 2 rounds for me. McKinney first round, by the way.
It's a wildly confusing NTDP year.
So
you.
LJ Mooney.
Moore, McKinney, Fondork. I don't know. Mooney, I guess you can throw in there because I want LJ Mooney to be a thing.
Yep.
Just like I want LJ to actually stand for Little John.
What?
But I don't know, man. This NTDP team is going to be interesting to watch develop over the next couple of years. I will say that.
Yeah.
I agree.
I'm looking at it right now, like the whole team, and the only ones who like Fondrick is the one who I enjoy, I think, the most, and Murtaugh I've seen do things, I guess, and McKinney, yeah, Moore plays hockey. LJ Mooney is the one who like I really like. I'm kind of in the same boat. Like to me, pre-injury last year, LJ Mooney is still the best player on the current NTDP. If he was in that form, like without any further development, just like take last year's LJ Mooney and copy paste it onto this year's team, and it's the best player. And that makes me extremely confused when it comes to evaluating this NTDP team. So I think I'll just bow out
He
of the
has been
question
pretty.
right now.
He has been
He's
pretty good
he's
lately
picking
for
up his
me.
form,
He's been
but
pretty good
it's
lately.
not what it was.
All right, the Habs have 2 first rounders. Sam, give me 2 forwards to consider. I like Desnoyers and O'Brien. Who do you go with? Who are the Habs taking this
Neither
year?
at 8th overall or wherever we are right
Who?
now.
Who's it going to be?
It's gonna be like, hopefully it's like Eklund and Potter or something like that. Like those are the guys we get to pick from. Like,
that would be so dumb that it's never going to happen.
Eklund on a line with like Demidov in a year is just, or in like 2 years is stupid, and Potter centering Demidov is stupid. And when I say stupid, I mean incredible. So those are kind of the guys like I lean with. Like I understand the French Desnoyers connection, and I know that he's rated high, so I understand why Habs forwards are on him. O'Brien is just more like a lot of what we've already had over the years, and then fans kind of look at the team and go, but we need more oomph. We need more dynamic ability. It like if we're still in the top 10 and we're not swinging for dynamic ability, what are we doing? It's kind of just like the way I'm looking at this, especially for the Habs. Like that's what we need more than anything. So if the forward ain't dynamic as heck, and we don't have a whole lot this draft, I ain't interested.
All right, I will propose 2 players really quick: Lakovic and Zonin. A little bit of both. You get the dynamic, you get the motor.
Lakovic absolutely is actually a good one, and Zonin
I think those would
like,
be interesting Habs picks.
I like Bill Zonin.
I would hate Bill Zonin as a Hab.
Bill Zonin actually, you know what? That I wouldn't want to do it over the other options, but if we're gonna go down like the O'Brien, Desnoyers route, then it goes back to
adore that guy.
Zonin would be like Zonin is Gallagher 2.0 almost in a way. Not necessarily. I don't mean equivalent, and I mean the way Habs fans see them and like get attached to that heart and soul driver where like nobody can look at him and be like he's anything less than a leader that everyone has to follow on the ice.
I was
like
thinking
Zonin would take up that role.
I was thinking more like Michael Pezzetta, but like more gooder, you know?
Yeah, but like fans love Pezzetta too, but fans also like have distinct, like if Habs fans know Pezzetta it is what he is. Gallagher, because he was also like a high-end player, has just this like we love him. Like
I'm just trying to keep a lid on this, you know. I'm just trying to keep things reasonable because Brendan Gallagher is like.
I don't mean like that they're not even like the same. They don't even necessarily play the same. But wear your heart on your sleeve and basically die in the jersey for a goal or something like that, or like just a loose puck, like those types of guys. Like we love them, especially when they come out of the queue.
Yeah. Who's one player stuck in the AHL who needs to be in the NHL, but you're not allowed to pick a Providence Bruin, AJ?
No, that's not fair. That's not fair.
I mean, Brad Lambert's the easy answer for me.
Is he still on? Did he go back down? I haven't been paying attention.
He's been there all year, Sam.
Didn't they call him up?
For like, 1 game.
Oh, see, that's what I mean. Like, they called him up, and then I looked.
They called him up for really 1 game.
Okay, then yeah.
I mean Matthew Savoy, but he's in the NHL now too. I don't know. There's not a whole lot of them.
Well, you picked the right answer.
Hold on.
Yeah, it's probably Brad Lambert, but like, I don't know.
It's our boys. That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
we pump our own stonks, and that's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
My answer is, although maybe he's not ready yet, but Noah Ostlund. But that's my guy, so of course I'm.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's being held back. Like Brad Lambert's just on in one of the systems of one of the best teams in the league, so it's tough.
Oh wait, I do have an answer for this. Then sorry, I don't know why it took me so long. Maverick Bork, although is he on?
He's in the NHL like all year, bro.
Oh, true, that's right. I'm getting my years mixed up.
Give me Topi Niemela so I can.
Busy following
Topi Niemela.
So I don't have to watch OEL anymore, please.
Oh god,
please.
I have some catching up to do.
I'll throw Ville Koivunen just because the Pens suck.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a guy who's just functional. That's what Ville Koivunen is.
They could use somebody functional is a very good way to put it. Yeah, that's a good one too. Oh boy, Kayshawn Aitchison is 6'1" and 200 pounds. How's he going to be
Oh,
physically
man.
imposing in the NHL without gaining 2 inches and 20 pounds?
He doesn't need
I'm
the
not
extra.
I'm not doing it.
I'll do it.
Yep, I'm not.
Yeah, okay, simple. He doesn't need the extra 2 inches and the extra 20 pounds. He needs to actually be the player he's advertised as. That's the problem. He's not this big physical wrecking ball of a player. We watched him again, like we watched him on Friday after the last stream Will had where they had the conversation. So we watched him. He was one of the players on the thing, and we were like, he's not this engaging presence that players are terrified to go around. He's fine, and he's most of his physicality comes after the whistle. You can be 4'2" and punch someone in the back after the whistle. Like that part doesn't matter. It's about like the size and weight only matters when it comes to distributing hits and force around the ice and like establishing a presence of like people don't want to go near you. And he doesn't establish this type of presence. I don't think he's incapable of doing it, but like right now, it's just like I think the reputation he has doesn't necessarily match what you're seeing from him when he's actually on the ice. Like it's kind of a little
Can
eye-opening.
I add
Yes.
something here before we move on? Ryan Lindgren is 6 feet, 194 pounds, and that guy can absolutely flatten you. So for me, as a real answer to the question, no offense, I would just say skating ability. It's not there yet, but skating, right? Like that's going to be the difference maker, right? You don't need to be a gigantic person. You know, if you're, again, kinetic energy, always think of the kinetic energy equation. I should frame it and put it in the back. 1/2 mv squared. What does the V stand for? Velocity. What does the M stand for? Mass. Just because you're bigger doesn't mean you're going to transmit more energy. If you're faster, you absolutely will. Obviously, it's good to have both, but if Kayshawn Aitchison or any player for that matter can get faster, then you're going to transmit a lot more energy and be a lot more physically imposing, mathematically speaking. And I'm pretty sure that equation holds up pretty well under the scrutiny of scientific testing. But
I wanted to mute you so bad in the middle of that, you nerd.
this is athletics. We don't talk about math here.
No.
Dork.
Yeah. Anyway,
I was so tempted. I was so tempted to be like, nope, we're done with this.
Yeah. Okay, let's gotta
run.
move on here. Let's see where this goes. The next one, I don't even know who Bodnar is. Is it like a soccer player from Slovakia with one name? I don't know. Sam, do you take O'Brien or Desnoyers?
Come on. How did we
What?
just get in the? I swear we just did something.
Yeah,
so
we did.
similar.
Okay, whatever. We can. skip it.
Desnoyers between the two, but it's close.
Okay. Favorite underrated J20 guy? 3, 2, 1. Michael Sverchek. Oh, I thought you were all going to do it. With
Sorry, I kind of just wasn't prepared for what was happening.
Of course.
But the answer is yes. It is. Yes, you said it right.
4 guys with ADHD. What do you guys think of Brady Martin? He's going to play. He's going to be fine. He's gonna. If you don't get Anton Frondell, you take Brady Martin.
I've seen him hockey.
Yep, he does the hockey. Adjective that a general manager will use to describe a prospect they pick on draft day that annoys the crap out of you.
Gamer.
Big.
Poise.
Big.
Ooh.
Poise.
He just knows how to play. He's a guy that wins.
Yeah, he's
wins.
A
winner.
A winner.
Winner,
Yeah, the guy's a
gamer.
winner. Yeah.
Gamer's the
Gamer,
worst
winner.
to me.
Yeah, winner. Updated Ryabkin thoughts. I will postpone on that because I got a game of his that I haven't done yet. But I don't know. Anyone else seen him recently? I haven't. Actually, wait a minute.
Ryabkin thoughts are he looks better in the USHL, I guess.
Yeah, Sam and I saw him Friday night. I gave him a B-. So
Yeah.
take that for what you will.
Yeah.
All right. I asked about Tommy Lafreniere a while back. He said you hadn't watched him. I saw a little bit of him. I think he's really smart, but I don't know if there's an NHL player there. That's always been my read on Tommy. Him and Nathan Beam. Smart, interesting players to watch. They clearly get the game, but I don't know. I don't see NHL players there. Would I be crazy to have Anthony Alain Mackay top 40? Maybe a little bit, but I like it.
No,
like,
no, you wouldn't.
Yeah,
You're
crazy.
a well-respected person.
Yeah, Tony's got him at like 4.
No, I think
No.
actually I have him at like 47 right now. But
Yeah,
every time I watch him, I go, I should just bump him up a little bit.
Yeah, he's at the end
Not
of my
because
second
like he
round.
had a particularly good game, because I'm like, man, if those 2 or 3 bad things didn't happen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's so many fun things there with him that I love. And, being a USHL rookie, he's doing pretty good. Matejchuk or Nemec? That's a tough one. I probably go Nemec.
David Juracek.
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
say Nemec, but I'm outdated on both.
I'll take both. I'll take one.
Curious.
Yeah, like I'll take either, but I probably lean
Lane
Nemec.
Hudson.
Yeah, Lane Hudson.
Yeah, that's the answer.
There we go.
Thank you.
I watched Martone the other night against London. Noticed when the play went the other way into Brampton zone, he had his struggles getting back into play. I would agree with that.
Yep.
London
I
goes,
think we've all seen
and
it.
Martone is not. Yeah. Okay, whatever. We don't care about David Phillips and his absence. What's the word on Kyle Heeger? Recent Western Michigan commit putting up impressive numbers with
player.
Shattuck. I really like Kyle Heeger. I'm excited for him next year. Watching what?
I was just gonna say type of player that makes Shattuck like those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mobile,
like a Shattuck
skaty boy.
player.
Yeah, he's a good player. He does not put the shat in Shattuck. He's a good one. Is Nesbitt the classic overdrafted big guy or nice project with upside because he's raw? I think it's the former. I just think he's fine. Like he's big and is okay, and I don't see a tremendous amount there. I don't know. Anyone else? Tony, you live in Windsor.
A lot because of Windsor, right? But
yeah.
I think the answer to the question is dependent on where he gets drafted. If he gets drafted in the first round, like I've seen a few lists have him, he's the big guy that got drafted way too high. If you can get him at the end of the second round or like third round, I think it's a decent project to take, because I do think, particularly as a skater, he's shown some growth over the last couple of years. Last year, I thought he was just a dude that got to spots and fired the puck. And every once in a while, he tried to kill a guy, but he couldn't catch up. This year, he's taken steps to become a better skater. He's a more mobile player. He's a more functional player at both ends of the ice, and his passing has been much better this year. So do I think he's worth a first-round pick? No, I don't. And I think if you get into that territory with him, you're a little crazy in the top 40. But once you start to get to that 50 range, maybe you start to think about him. But like even then, it really depends on who's on the board, right? Like if you're taking him and a guy like, I don't know, like if you're taking him and Shane Van Sage's on the board, I think you've got something going on in your head that's not quite right. So it's gonna be interesting.
I can't wait for that to happen. Yeah. Okay. Shamar Moses, Jack Nesbitt, or Gustav Hillstrom? What's your order? For me, Hillstrom, Moses, Nesbitt. I just think two of those guys are way more exciting than the other. And I like to be excited when I play hockey and watch hockey. We got two goalies, Pyotr Andrianov and Semyon Frolov. I believe in Andrianov a lot more. I love Andrianov. His workload is more difficult. I don't know, but we'll have to have David on actually for real. And he can probably know more than me. Memorial Cup teams prediction. Oh boy.
I honestly haven't thought about this once until I just read that.
Is it in Rimouski this year?
It's in Rimouski this year.
Rimouski.
I predict Rimouski will be there.
Yeah, Rimouski will probably be there. I mean, you got to think the Everett Silvertips are going to make a good hard run.
London is a
wagon,
as always.
Yeah. London is scary. I don't know how, but they are.
Moncton.
How?
Yeah,
it's because when London was building this team, they went, "This is the year we're going to be good," and then they proceeded to get to 2 OHL finals and win one.
Yeah, that's true.
They built this team for this year with Cowan and Barkey and Bonk and Sam Dickinson. Like, this is the year they were supposed to be competitive. They just happen to also go to 2 other finals.
Yeah, Denver Barkey, by the way. Shout out Denver Barkey. That guy is a boss. Feeling pretty good about him in my first round a couple years ago. Is Hagens overrated? Yes, he's good, but how does he differ from Hellenius or Michael Brunswick Newgard?
His skill level is like tiers beyond them. Like tiers beyond them. You might be just be getting sample size or just like unfortunately watch like maybe a quiet game, but like I've never once seen either of those players do things that I see Hagens do on the average viewing 6 times.
You ever see those things where it's like one of these things doesn't belong. Yeah, Haggins is the thing that doesn't belong in that trio.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
not the same style of player at all. Like, it'd be weird if he was.
Yeah. Is Schaefer underrated? I don't think
No.
so. I think he's very
Schaefer is
properly rated.
Schaefer's
He's a very good player.
Schaefer's a favorite for first overall. There's no such thing as underrated. You can't rank
Yeah.
him 0th overall. So
He's
that's-
underrated to be first overall next.
Error div 0. Yeah. All right, Will, did you see the Mooney goal? Just me. You guys, I don't care if you saw it or not. Did you see the Mooney
I
goal from the
didn't, so-
weekend? Goalie went full send for the poke check. He went around him and taunted him going back to the bench. I did not see it. I would love to, because I love me some LJ Mooney. And every time I watch the NDDP in the last little while, I go, God damn it, I want you to be a thing. Like, if LJ Mooney is like a 6th round draft pick or something, I am sprinting to the microphone. Like, take Max Swanson last year, who was a 7th round pick, and LJ Mooney this year. If you took a random sample of 100 simulations of picking one or the other, 100 of them I will go with LJ Mooney. So if LJ Mooney's like a 6th round pick, oh my goodness, I am so doing that. I don't know, but I imagine it was very nice, and taunting is great. I love a good taunt in hockey. Big guys who are soft don't work. Are you concerned with how Lakovic will handle physical play in the NHL? No. I mean, I also disagree. Like, I don't think Lakovic is like soft either. He just doesn't hit. Like, he's big, but he plays smaller than I just feel like it's just not. I don't know. Is Tage Thompson soft? I don't think so. I'm trying to think of the other big guys.
Defensively,
I don't know.
yes, but
well, sure, but like, I don't think Lakovic is like an amazing defensive player either. Not bad, but at the end of the day,
that's what they're interpreting as, like, maybe soft as maybe.
But
yeah,
I don't know. I see lots of good stuff in Lakovic's game for sure. Yes, actually, 3 goals in 39 AHL games. Brad Lambert. Now,
not a goal scorer. He's a transition.
Whatever. It's bait.
I fell for it.
Thoughts on Sean Barnhill?
Ooh, what an interesting question to end this on.
I'm a big fan.
Barnhill's cool, and like, we should give more credit to USHL defenders who don't score, because that's like, I'm not joking. Like, it's a tougher league to score in for defenders relative to the CHL leagues, but like, Barnhill moves really well for his size, and I would have said before Friday that Radim Murtka moves better, but then we watched those 2 games and I kind of was like, oh, well, I don't know if he's got that better lateral, like, agility 360 quickness anymore. And that's kind of a big deal.
Well, yeah, Barnhill just can't really pass the puck. Like, he's just not much of a puck mover, like, at all.
Which is fine.
But that doesn't mean he can't do it. And I don't know if there's a bigger player who skates that well out there this year, because he's like 6'8", and actually I saw him just blast someone into next Tuesday in a game I did of his, and I saw him go end to end a couple of times in the last game I did of him, where I went, I haven't seen very many players do that this year. And that, for a big guy like that, carving through players like that, that's pretty good. Yeah,
I think with Barnhill, the thing I always look at when I watch him is, I'm like, you're big, you're a defensive stopper. I think you can work at the next level, assuming you have somebody who can move the puck at a high level next to you. That's going to be the thing. Like, he's a third pair guy who can survive on the ice because he fills the gaps of the guy that's next to him. The guy next to him is probably going to be a 5'11" puck moving defenseman who can make some things happen offensively. Barnhill's going to kill a dude and let him do it. So I think, like you said, there aren't many guys that size. I think 6'6" or 6'5" that can move that well. So fill out that frame, get a little stronger, and continue being the high end skater that you are. And I think there's a place for him at the NHL level.
Sean Barnhill, Thomas Galvis pair. Bam.
Oh,
that's
baby.
it. That's the one.
That's fun.
There you go. Okay. What else do we have here? I agree. Andrianov plays Silver Division competition. Yes, fair enough. I mean, again, I don't know I don't know ass about goalies. I don't know. I don't really think I know everything. And honestly, at the end of the day, I probably would. I've liked Medvedev more when I watch goalies, but I don't know. I don't know anything. Does Lakovic never adding a physically imposing side run the risk of Pierre Engvall struggles?
He's got more skill.
I think he's got way more skill than Pierre Engvall
Yeah.
does.
They're just different players, but I just see where you're coming from. But
I see, yeah, I see what you mean, but I don't know, man. Like, he's got so much there. What's the fewest amount of games in a draft year that is acceptable to judge a player? 17 seems low. Well, Morgan Riley would beg to differ because that was
figure
like
out a
12.
player
I mean,
and
yeah, I
you
mean,
can
it's
see what a player is in like 3-4 games sometimes.
How many
makes it
games
more
did we
cha-
get
it
of
makes it
Logan
more challenging.
Stankoven in 2021?
Like, actually, that's a great point. The whole 2021 draft
Johnston.
was like 20 game samples at best. So, like you deal
Um,
with what you can deal with, but like the point is like, sure, we want Schaefer to have more than 17 games, but like
Yeah.
if he doesn't get them, and then we take someone else, and then Schaefer ends up being like third or fourth best player, we passed on him because he didn't like meet a quota. It's like,
Yeah.
well, that was a dumb quota to like. I'm not saying like. It was kind of just like it was faulty logic to just like hold on to that specific number.
And the other thing with
Yeah.
Schaefer too is it's 17 games in the OHL. It's 5 at the Hlinka. It's 2 at the World Juniors, even though the second one was shortened. So we have gotten to see him in a few different settings as well.
And he's coming
it's-
back. Like,
Exactly, and he's supposed to be back for the end of the like.
and
part-
it's only February.
yeah,
Like, we got March, April, May, and he'll probably play all of those, like at least parts of March, I would think.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that question is fit for McQueen, but we don't need to do that. Just
Well, I think he comes up anyway before we go, but okay. Where does Potter go if he scores 100 points on the NTDB this year? Well,
he goes to Arizona State University
Yeah.
now, so he goes to Arizona State University tomorrow and next year as well.
yeah.
yeah, fair enough. Jimmy Lombardi is a late round pick. Sure, he's smart.
Yeah,
He's a good one.
cool.
He's fun. Is there any concern from you guys that Misa doesn't have a high enough hockey IQ to become more than a 60
I
point
think
NHL?
Misa might be the smartest player in the draft,
Yeah, no, I think he's
and I don't.
he's bananas.
I
Watch the
don't
game
mean to
tape.
critique. I
He's
don't mean to
awesome.
criticize, but like
Yeah. He's
hockey
sick.
IQ is a very difficult. Like if you trying to look at a player and be like, what is your hockey IQ, and look at like all the different ways they can be smart and find advantages, then you'll miss out. It's like you're staring at a tree. There's a big old forest.
So someone asks, would you say LJ Mooney is similar to Brett Berard? No.
No.
No, but I don't know who I would compare LJ Mooney to. Like,
You
Rock-
said Stankoven once, like last year, like a baby Stank who wasn't as good.
yeah. I mean, he is I'm trying to think, like, because he is a real jerk. He hits guys. Like, he's
It's tough.
pesky. Yeah.
It's tough because are we talking prior to the knee
missed
injury
a
LJ Mooney or post knee injury LJ Mooney? Those are two very different players. Even with the improvement that he's had in his recent few games, those are two very different players. Because
Yeah.
the thing that came out of his game wasn't like his skating was clearly laboring him when he came back. But the thing that really came out of his game was that tenacity, that drive to the middle of the ice, and I think that's what he's missing to be that player that you want to talk about with those the shades of Logan Stankoven or someone like that. So for me, it's just, can this guy get healthy, and can this guy become the player people once thought he was? And if NHL Central Scouting is any indication, you're going to be able to get him pretty late. You're going to be able to kind of take a swing on him, and you might get a guy that's a top 20 player in this draft class.
Someone threw out Connor Garland, and I think that is a very interesting thought.
Ooh.
Garland was a +1 draft pick. He was undrafted in his draft year. He was a point a game in the QMJHL when he was the first time eligible, and then he scored 130 points the next year. I could see LJ Mooney going to college and blowing it up next year.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I
you know
could
what? That's a really
very easily. He's going to the
Yeah.
University of Minnesota. I believe he'll be there next year. I think he's committed to go next year. And I could see him be a guy who has a good summer. I think the last couple of games I've seen of him, he's looked pretty good. But again, it's like the bar for guys like him is like through the roof, and you got to be an energetic jerk. Is LJ Mooney that? I think he is. I think he could be that at higher levels. He's one of the most frequent hitters in my data set. He's a jerk. Like, he flies around, and if he can have a little bit, like, he needs escape speed. That's the thing. He doesn't have that. Like, he can use his skating in terms of like little quick cuts and everything just to evade guys for a brief second and make a play. And his passing ability is bonkers. But he like doesn't have the ability to create shooting opportunities for himself. And he just doesn't have that like get the puck and go and no one can touch him speed, which I think is something that guys like him need. But if he can do that over the summer and sort of get back on track, that's going to be a really, really good one. Prediction for Roger McQueen's draft position. 5.
Oh man, I don't know.
4.
Top 7.
Yeah, top.
Yeah, I don't see him falling out of the top 7.
Yeah.
Even though I don't have him in the top 17. But
Well, yeah.
Oh, I wonder where you have Roger McQueen. I wonder what number you have beside his name.
Lower than 7. I'll
Yep.
say that.
Yep.
Yeah. So can Philip Ekberg make it work in the NHL? Are we just gonna move on to that? Because
Yeah, pretty much.
you
Yeah.
don't have to do the whole.
No,
Roger
we don't need to
McQueen
do
thing.
that. Where does Cullen Potter get drafted if he scores 100 points? Probably where we have him ranked, like top 6, 5.
I feel like I
I
do
love
feel
him.
like the question makes more sense when now that it's like emphasizing if he
Yes.
stayed on the NPU, because this is
Yes.
I think we discussed this on the show. Like, if Potter was on the NTDP,
Yeah.
he was disgusting last year.
Exactly.
We did the whole conversation of like what the NTDP looks like when Potter shifts up to be its star, and when he goes. Like, he is one of the draft's best players, and whoever leads the NTDP just gets that pump into the top 10 usually
Yep.
when they're like a clear-cut star. Yeah, I think he goes where we have him, but instead he goes lower because he's doing really well in college.
Yeah. Is Cole
makes
McKinney a top
sense.
20 pick? Probably not, but I could see it happening, I suppose. Anything else? Can Philip Ekberg make it work in the NHL? I would be surprised, but he's okay, I suppose. Like, he's
Maybe.
a good passer, but I don't think there's enough there. McQueen isn't going higher than 6. Oh, my friend, I think it is entirely possible he goes higher than 6.
You're thinking right, in my opinion. But
I mean,
like,
I agree he shouldn't, but I don't. I mean,
Talk to some
NHL
people.
people are still ranking him like top 7, 6, 5. Like,
You
he's
can't
up
argue with
there.
a 4-goal game while you're hurt.
Yeah, it's
You
true.
can't
I
argue
was
with
talking.
that.
No, I genuinely was talking to someone
Yeah.
in the last like few weeks, and the 4-goal game was brought up, and I
See?
said that was in October, and they went, "Yeah, well, we haven't seen him since then," and I went,
yeah,
"Okay, exactly."
thank you.
What do Bedard and Celebrini have that made them consensus first overall picks that Misa doesn't have?
Separation from second overall. It really comes. I think it comes like no. It sounds silly, but like it comes down to that, right? Like I think the fact that Schaefer's been as good as he has and Misa's been as good as he has, even Hagen's, you don't have that gap, right? With Celebrini, you had the gap between the guys. With Bedard, I loved Fantilli. I thought Carlson was good. Like, Michkov was right there, but you had that gap. So
I mean,
I think that's kind of what it comes down to.
My top tier last year was Celebrini, Demidov, and I feel like those two guys would be in the tier with Schaefer, Misa. But Connor Bedard, like the speed in his game, the shot quality, the skill level, like that's what separated
Outrageous
him. It was
player.
like 9.5 out of 10 stuff. I think Michael Misa is a guy where it's like 8.75 across the board, literally everything, except maybe throwing hits. But other than that, 8 3/4 across the board. Okay, and last question of the night, and then we're cutting it off. Would Leo Carlson go first overall this year? Is a cutoff? No, that's it. I don't think he would.
We missed one.
Yeah. Where would Lev Shinov and Demidov go in this draft? For me, Demidov would probably be ranked behind Schaefer and Misa.
I think,
but ahead of Demidov. But ahead. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, keep in mind, like, we thought he was neck and neck with Celebrini. Would you take Celebrini first? I feel like
over Schaefer and Misa, that's a tough call.
I think Demidov and Celebrini, because we've kind of lumped him in here, are in that group with Misa and Schaefer.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um,
We can. Say
I think it would be a foursome of guys that I think would really be competing for first overall. Davidoff would fall because, of course, he would.
Yeah.
But because of how young Schaefer is, because Misa and Celebrini would be a really interesting debate between the two of them, and maybe that's something we can do the next time we're all on.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's really a debate that can go on for 25 minutes. So
Okay, and then Lev Shinov, I'd probably say middle teens for me. He'd probably be mid-teens on my list this year.
I was just gonna say he
mid-teen
probably goes in the
last
top
year.
5 or top 10, but
Yeah.
I don't know, man. He'd be lower on my board too.
Yep.
Okay. On that note, we're gonna call it. Thank you very much for joining us, and guys, thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun.
Yes,
I
it
hope
was.
I hope we haven't scarred you to the point where you never want to come back. But thanks for joining us, and thanks to all of you for watching. This was a lot of fun, and we'll be back Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And
Do you want to reveal the guest? It's a good guest.
Yeah, we're having Grav on the show. It's going to be a good time. Mr. Grav himself.
Hello,
And
Grav.
Yeah, we're
From the
gonna
past.
have some fun. We're gonna gloat. We're gonna have a good time.
Why are you
and
spoiling
make 'em
that?
cry.
Why are you spoiling
Well,
that
I
we're going to
mean,
gloat?
It's obvious. It's obvious we're gonna gloat in front of an American. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be great. But
And
anyway,
I will also be gloating when the Leafs win
Yeah.
the Stanley Cup this year. Go Leafs, go! And that is the end of the
Oh.
stream. Goodbye,
oh,
everybody.
okay.